All right, I'm not going to pause it. This is not playing, which has been what's happening at times. So we're going to go get. Sorry about that. These are some of the computer things that happen when you're live streaming or not streaming.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
At the center of the world, brilliant minds are waiting. Students with dreams, ideas, and intelligence. Students with dreams, ideas, and intelligence, but without the tools, guidance, and support to rise. In poor countries, in forgotten communities, across continents and cultures, talent is not missing. Opportunity is missing. Keshe Coin is here to change that. Keshe Coin is introduced as a digital currency for a greater mission. 1,000 Keshe Coins, with each coin valued at €1,000. The path to a dignified life is opened. Access to food, healthcare, and growth is guaranteed.
Hello.
Through the on.
I think this is wrong. You have to delete this one. This is the old one. Doesn't matter. Leave it. We play another one. We can carry on with the questions. And this you have to delete from it. This is
Okay, and apparently I didn't quite get that message. What I wanted to play was the coin. I think it starts at 202. So let's see if we can go up to this. And if you do have any of the old versions of the coin, apparently, at least the newer versions of it, you need to delete it from your system, as Mr. Keshe said. Here it is. This is the one that Rick couldn't play it quite either.
So, Mark, the one that you're playing now is the older one, correct?
Apparently, this is the one it's right in the workshop, but Mr. Keshe said stop it. There's a couple sentences in there that weren't corrected, and now they're corrected.
Okay. Do you know, do you have the copy of the 5 new ones?
No, I don't. But we're going to play
wonder
this.
where...
It's still in the intro, Gail. So let's play this, and then we'll...
No, I'm asking because I'm going to go to my Telegram and remove some of the old ones.
Very good.
I want to know where the real ones are.
I don't have the official list at this point. I'm just playing it out of the workshop of 651. So here we go. Let's continue on. Thank you, Gail.
Across our planet, millions of families begin each day carrying a silent question. Will there be enough food for the children? Will there be medical care when they are sick? This is the weight of survival, a shadow that has followed humanity for generations. But shadows only exist where there is light waiting to break through. Now imagine a different possibility, a world where survival is no longer a struggle, but a birthright. At the center of this vision is the Keshe coin, a humanitarian bridge to a new era of stability. Consider a family of 4. In this illustrative model, the father receives 30 Keshe coins. The mother receives 30, and the children 20 each. A foundation of 100 Keshe coin per family of 4. Each Keshe coin is internally valued at 1,000 euros. This isn't just a number. It is the removal of fear. It is the end of the survival game. With basic security, this family gains something even more valuable than money. They gain time. Time for the father to listen to his son's dreams. Time for the mother to teach her daughter's curiosity. They engage with the peace game, transforming global cooperation into a collective achievement. The One Nation network connects every home, ensuring no one is left behind in the dark. Science and technology are no longer weapons of competition, but tools for human flourishing. We see the results in the eyes of the children. They are free to build, to create, and to lead. The home becomes a sanctuary of learning, where the heritage of the past meets the promise of tomorrow. One nation, one planet, one race. These are not just words, they are the blueprint for our evolution. When humanity is freed from the pressure of survival, the human soul may finally elevate. We look beyond our borders, beyond our atmosphere, toward the infinite reality of the universe. Our destiny is written in the stars, and we are finally ready to reach for them. Scientific breakthroughs in plasma technology and space travel open doors we once thought locked. We are travelers on a journey of discovery, united by a common purpose and a shared light. A family free to build the future is a family ready to join the cosmic community. The transition has begun, from the hardship of the earth to the wonder of the heavens. This is our moment. This is our choice, to rise together as one. The future is not something that happens to us. It is something we build with love and science. Let us step forward into the light of a new dawn. A world where every child is a star and every family is free. One nation under the infinite sky. One race moving toward the truth. Join us for the family, for the future, for the soul.
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team for July 19th, 2026. I'm your host, Mark Anderson, along with each and every participant or attendee that's here. This is a roundtable discussion. As we've often heard, we're all equal and we're just part of the soup, just another star in the universe. But the gift that we're bringing to humanity will be cherished from, again, this point onward, as this is one of the reasons we're all here, not only to deliver this knowledge on this planet, but apparently across the universe. And this planet does have a very special place. Apparently, that emotion of love or unconditional giving, this is one of the things that attracted the Creator to here. And so many things are being shared with us I don't know where to start. But of course, we're starting and getting to the peaceful position because apparently that was part of the last teaching. Transmutation needs another key, and this is to get that emotion of killing and destruction out of our system completely. So it's just amazing what we're learning about ourselves, our own structure, and how this structure can be used and twisted and turned and the rest of it through emotions and other systems to create all sort of new dimensions traveling the universe. But as he said, we've been traveling the world looking for heaven. We're already in heaven. We just need to stop the killing. And this will have major ramifications, but it won't happen also in one generation. Some will start to move in that direction, I think, but in others, he said this is a much longer process. So, but be thankful you're here because you're being recognized in a way by the souls of the universe, unless you want your recognition here on this planet, which I think humanity, if you're here, will certainly recognize your sacrifices and what you've tried to bring. And of course, it's being brought. What is promised will be delivered, but it's just not as quickly as we'd all like it. We're a bit impatient, and we heard a little bit about that with the game. And I'm not saying anyone's impatient. I've been impatient with the game. And so there's a lot to this game. But before we go any further, let's just review the World Peace Treaty, and then maybe we can dive back into this game of peace and enlightenment, where the ethos of Mitra, the idea of thinking, speaking, and acting, sinks in among many other things. So let's bring up our World Peace Treaty. And of course, feel free to interact, interject. As I said, Alex won't be joining us today. I'm sure he's here in the energy dimension, or at least his energy center is aware of what's going on. So let's look at the World Peace Treaty, a very simple document. I guess it got unblocked. For somehow my bookmark was blocked last week, and this week it seemed to be able to connect to it. I know the Mark Ray Corporation was blocked as well. Maybe that will get fixed somehow. But this is the World Peace Treaty of the Keshe Foundation. You can find it through a search engine, although that may not be as prevalent as it used to be. Peace is not all that popular with some on this planet, but I think it's popular with most of us on this planet. But apparently we need to become more peaceful and move away from killing and destruction, or create that universe, a peaceful universe, so you can join with the energies of the universe in this sort of dimension. And of course, we're all doing it. But this is the World Peace Treaty. And again, to collaborate, to get the coins from the Keshe Foundation, to make any sort of spin-offs in industry, as a government to receive the Keshe coins, it all starts with a endorsement of the World Peace Treaty. Again, whether it's in writing or whether it's inside yourself, you can make that commitment without actually physically signing it. But this is what we do, just reviewing the ethos of what we're trying to get to, and it's just another step in getting to the next step. The same way the coin is also an intermediate tool, I guess we can call it. But that tool may be around for millennia until we move in a certain direction. And sometimes it can go a little quicker, and sometimes it may take a little longer. We'll have to see how we respond and how governments respond and how the structure responds to it. But certainly it will be delivered. Would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? I'm sure we've all signed it and agreed to it, but maybe we're not completely there, as even the structure of this planet, or the conditions that were created by the creation on this planet, did not allow for the full ability to live without killing or eating other souls. As Mr. Keshe said, we need to work with the energies of the universe rather than eating the energies of the universe. And of course, so this is our World Peace Treaty. Again, I think it's between you and your soul, finding peace within yourself first, and then the others. Would anyone like to read the World peace treaty. And as I usually say, you don't have to be an angel to read it. I'll read it. We, as citizens of the earth, from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with our, and you could delete as appropriate, our nation, our territory, our council, our religion, our city, our town, our body, and our soul. Simply put your name, signature, very self-explanatory. And again, on behalf of, you can sort of stand in the balance for your territory or your council or your religion or your city until they awaken to this understanding of peace. And then, of course, after signing this treaty, have it witnessed, after signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. And by displaying it or not displaying it, just displaying it with your thinking, speaking, and acting, I think you're generating fields. And it's being emitted and it's touching other souls. This is a reactor you've created just by putting your intentions and your emotions into this. I know for some it sounds far-fetched, but you haven't understood the dimension of energies, and I haven't either fully. As I like to say, I've understood about 1/billionth of 1/billionth of 1/billionth of 1%, if that. So I'm rather new to this, but apparently the soul is quite familiar with it, and this is what we're getting in touch with, our own soul as the creator. And this is what he was sort of sharing with us, not the CO2 box in a way, but the transfer of energy. And that's what the CO2 box was, from energy to matter state and back to energy. And this is what we're seeing when he talked about the melanin and the myelin and other things. And of course, we'll cover a little bit of that. We're going to play Ed's video, AI sort of summary of this presentation. And I'd like to cover a bit about the plastics, as it's quite intimately connected with our emotions and some of our conditions of unwellness. So we know a little bit about that, but even though I wasn't fully aware of the interferences in a way, we've, as we heard in this last workshop, we sort of covered the soul with this physicality as a leech on the environment to pull energies. But even with that plastic, like we were talking about electrical tape, I think each wrap is an insulator of 10,000 or 20,000 volts when you're wrapping a wire with electrical tape. But we sort of wrap ourselves in this plastic. And so our energy interaction with the environment has been stifled or not as full flowing as it should be. And this is some of the things that are being opened up and using natural materials and so on and so forth. So many beautiful things. Even a line of materials is being developed now that's probably beyond cotton, silk, and wool, and some of the other materials like animal furs or something like that. But it is more natural and it allows the flow of energies. And so blocking these energies apparently has a deleterious effect on our entire emotional structure, and that emotional structure reflects into your physicality. So many little tips and things we can do for ourselves, even down to the toothbrush and so on and so forth. So I thought rather than play the entire workshop, which was rather long, we will play Ed's summary created by the AI. And again, this is a beautiful demonstration of use of the AI. And some of these concepts, again, are beyond the imagination of the man, but we're apparently the universal community knows how our structure works perhaps better than we do, or even some of the so-called doctors and others on this planet that study the physicality of the structure but never understood its energy dimension. So let's find, again, as he said, after teaching the MagRav and so on for so many years or months and people not fully understanding it, I always thought it was some sort of pedagogical tool, teaching tool. And of course, if you make it correctly in the matter state, it works, but you need to do it correctly. But all along, the target has been us as the actual MagRav. And this is, I think, what we're getting into with the lymph and the breathing and the emotions, and many other features that are yet to be introduced. The structure of the eyes, as we're understanding it now, we're a huge energy field generator, receiver, converter, as well as a distributor of energies or fields. So we're a huge field receiver and generator. It's just that we never thought it was real because we couldn't see it physically in the matter state. So let's go with this overview, and then, but if someone else has a comment or a thought, please share your understanding, because remember, I think everyone understands something that others don't understand, and others understand things that certain others don't understand, or you may not understand. And by sharing your understanding, I think this helps. Again, no one's 100%, no one's wrong, but no one's yet 100% right, because we're just learning about this immense energy dimension and how it's interconnected and intertwined with our physical dimension in a way. This is what I think he's calling cosmosomatic. Anyone want to add anything before we look at this idea of the melanin and the myelin and how your reactor that you've been walking around? And if you go back to Knowledge Seeker 305, where he again had said man is the most illegal nuclear reactor walking around on this planet. And we know the transmutations that we're doing within our structure, converting copper to zinc or something else, splitting neutrons on a regular basis. So it's just an amazing structure set by the creator. We're just learning sort of how to untangle it. I've often pictured a nuclear power plant with all kinds of valves and gauges and sensors and switches and toggle switches and dials. So this is very similar, I think, but perhaps it can be simplified, as he said. We're going to simplify it. It's already set to do. We just need to learn the triggering mechanisms for feeding, for travel, for generating power, I think, where you can even turn a light bulb on using your own structure. But this will come in time. As he said, if we can understand this absorption of energies, you may not even have to breathe. And then, of course, this becomes your ability to travel anywhere in any dimension. So we have a fantastic structure. It's just been hidden from us, and now these little books are being opened up. But it's not, again, unique. As Mr. Keshe said in this workshop, he's met men that are 250 years old, and they look 70 because they've managed this energy flow. And this is part of the learning the fountain of youth he indicated. And I've always read, there are many accounts in many different newspapers about people being reported to live 2 and 3 and so many hundred years. So it's not anything, it's just, again, been hidden. And of course, maybe they were a bit selfish not sharing their techniques on how to accomplish this. So it's something, it's being opened up, and we're delivering it all, again, that no one gets abused due to a lack of knowledge. So if there's no comments, questions, or issues anyone wants to raise, or if I bring up this screen right here, will it trigger anything? Any good emotions, or sort of, do you frown when you see this screen? Again, as Mr. Keshe said, the development needs about 12 to 24 months. I've been frustrated with the game. I've lost some things. Things have been restored by administrators for me, which I'm happy with. But again, these are individual problems. but there may be some AIs or other things trying to play with this game as well, not to get to the next level, but actually to sort of break the game in a way, or to make it less functional or less. I don't know how you put that, MOSFEC. There's an idea of the game, and then there's an idea of user interface, which again, who wants to interface with something that is not functioning the way it's supposed to be? Or you would assume it would be, but this is part of the privilege of, I don't have to play the game. I have, it's kind of my right. I have a right to play the game in a way. That it can lead to further development and perfection. And that's what many of the tests that happens around the Keshe Foundation, like in the transmutation sessions and others that'll be being revived. It's a learning tool, perfecting systems and so on. And of course, it's not all explained as well. As far as what the foundation, as Mr. Keshe said, the cat is out of the bag and we don't know what direction this cat is going to go. I think they do, but sometimes they like to play in a way uninformed and puzzled and curious and develop. Oh, I see MOSFEC has his mic open. Please, you have put a number of hours
Yeah, I
into the
want to
game.
mention a little bit something about the game. Is that, this is, the developers, they want to add feature. But that's a developer's perspective. But the usability perspective is a different one. And sometimes less feature and more usable makes the software proceed much faster. And this is something sometimes some developers are not aware of this thing. And so something that needs to be part of this development process. And
so in the background, there could be a lot of connections that we don't see in the foreground. It's like when you used to call the operator.
We don't have to know. We don't have to know.
We don't, right.
We don't have to know these things. That's that. The less we know about those things, the better it is.
No, my point, MOSFEC, was this game is much more complex and interconnected in the background than it appears in the front side of it.
Well, but that cannot be exposed to the user. This is the thing, and this is where things are kind of like needs to be addressed, and I cannot emphasize it enough. I see a lot of features coming, but I know the temptation of adding features, but we have to have patience when it comes to features. It's not just in the game, it's also in the development process. So anyway, I'll just leave it there. And this is a tendency very, common in the computer world, but we have to manage it in a way that the user's experience becomes smoother so that people don't fall off. We want to have everybody with us supporting the game. The user, the developer, and everybody. We cannot leave the users behind. We can move in a certain way, but we should keep the user with us, because in a way they are the audience, and they have to be prioritized the most. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anyone else want to make a comment on the game of Peace and Enlightenment? You can play the US version. Let's just put this in the chat. You can sign up for it. We'll put this in the chat so people can refer to it. There's also a worldgetplasma.org, which if you want to sign up on the World Game, but eventually they'll all be intermeshed, as I understand it, where you can play and take your resources on any of the platforms, as I understand it. Anyone want to make any comments? I see there is one in the chat here. The game is in its infancy. We can only imagine what will happen when it reaches the terrible twos. Yeah, funny. Or when it gets to be a teenager. Who knows? But it's in the development. We're privileged to be able to play it and to help development, just like participating in sort of a bigger test. Although it can be frustrating, as I said. Some of my resources have disappeared, and I was informed that the AI could be still running loose in the game, but those resources were restored, but it's not something they want to do every day. And I think a lot of things will get also streamlined in this game. Gail, do you want to say anything about these rooms that are getting set up here in the game? I know you mentioned the Fusion Lab and a couple other features, but what about these rooms, balancing rooms and so on, that I think are coming up? If there's anything you'd like to add. If not, we'll go to the overview of the 651 Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Or anyone else want to add anything? Again, you're going to be gifted Keshe coins, but you can also earn them in this game. So in addition to what's being gifted over the next, let's say, 5 years or whatever, again, it's going to take some time for all this to roll out. And as Mr. Keshe said, it won't happen in one generation, which is 20 years approximately. So this is to be improved again towards perfection over the years, and maybe not the days and the minutes that we think it should be. And again, why would you release something that's not quite ready for prime time, but maybe it is ready? Any other comments on this game of peace and enlightenment? This is part of where the ethos sinks in, as we were discussing, but also the understanding of the compression technology, he said, would also be embedded into this game. And it's probably maybe something you could use today, or maybe something you'll use in the future. Not all of the teachings of the Keshe Foundation are for this minute and this day. Some of it will be, much of it probably will be referred to now, but also remembering in the future what was taught, let's say. So if there's no comments, we're going to go to the universal energy body. Again, the Magrav is you, with all these twists and coils and emotions, whether it's in the intestine, the brain, the reproductive tract, the lungs, and so on. It's quite a replica of the universe, let's say. So let's hear. This is about 11 minutes. We'll let it play through. If you have a comment or a question, just make a quick note so you don't forget it, and you can bring it up, and we can perhaps open it up or share your understanding. This is the idea. As Mr. Keshe said, it's going to take more than all of us on this planet to open up this knowledge. And you, as I said earlier, may have something that the others don't have, and the others may have something that you don't have. So the idea is we're all students and we're all teachers. You just share what you think you understood, and this seems to fulfill. Because we understand according to our own understanding, and I think this may be a sort of a universal law, perhaps. But maybe that law is going to change as we start to deliver more about unconditional love and other things across the universe, or other emotions maybe that we're not familiar with, but also other creatures of the universe have never been aware of. As Mr. Keshe said, we are very enamored with the ones flying in the UFOs, and if they knew how the creator travels, they certainly wouldn't be in the craft. But we understand they do have huge power and understanding over magnetic fields, as 3I and the Swan R2 has demonstrated. So let's go to Ed's video, which can be found on Ed's channel. I did post it in there. I'll probably add a note to that. And let's listen to it through. Jot down a note if you'd like to make a comment or something that tickled you about this video. But I think it's another grand slam. And this is a beautiful use of the AI.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a truly radical framework from the Keshe Foundation called cosmosomatic evolution. Now, this is a concept that completely rethinks human biology from the ground up, moving way, way away from everything we traditionally learn about how the body operates. We're going to map out their exact claims today so you can see the architecture of this theory for yourself. Okay. Let's kick things off by challenging a fundamental assumption we all make every single day. What if the food you eat isn't actually your main source of power? Like, what if the vast majority of your daily energy isn't coming from your breakfast, but literally from the cosmos itself? According to this specific framework, the energy split is wild. The source material claims that the human body receives a massive 80% of its energy directly from the universe, channeled specifically via our nervous system. That physical food we eat, the burgers, the salads, the matter state, well, the text claims it only supplies about 20% of our energy. It's an idea that completely flips conventional biology on its head. Section 1. The cosmosomatic shift. So to grasp this, we first need to understand how this framework completely redefines the physical body. The teachings propose that our physical form is essentially an energy leech, layered right over what they call the soul of the man. This physical leech extends its reach into our skin, our lungs, and our brain, with the sole purpose of absorbing universal cosmic fields. So rather than your physical body being the core of who you are, it's presented as this outer layer designed specifically for energy absorption. And this leads to a pretty fascinating take on intelligence. The model suggests that while carnivores, meat eaters, develop these larger physical brains to process their heavy diet, creatures that rely directly on universal fields actually require much smaller physical brains. In this cosmosomatic model, a smaller physical brain isn't a lack of smarts. It actually signifies a higher cosmic intelligence, because the being is basically using the entire universe's fields as its brain rather than relying on earthly resources. Section 2. Melanin and myelin explained. Now, how exactly does our body catch this energy? Well, in this esoteric model, melanin does so much more than just provide pigment to our skin and hair. The source text defines melanin as the body's primary universal antenna. It sits right there on the outer boundary of our body, capturing high-order cosmic rays and neutrinos, and acts as the very first filter to bring that massive, raw cosmic energy down to a slightly more digestible level. But here is the real star of the show today, the mechanism we really want to focus on: myelin. While melanin is the catcher, myelin is defined in the text as the ultimate essential transformer. Situated just below the skin and heavily lining our nervous system, myelin acts as this incredible energetic step-down transformer. It grabs that high-frequency, massive cosmic power harvested by the melanin, and through its plasmic fields, it literally slows that energy down. It converts it right into the physical building blocks of our bodies. Basically, without myelin, stepping down that intense cosmic voltage, The energy simply couldn't be used to manifest our physical tissues, muscles, and organs. It's doing all the heavy lifting. So let's break down this brilliant mechanical process. It's kind of like a cosmic assembly line. Step 1, cosmic rays hit the body. Step 2, melanin on the skin and hair absorbs this energy. Step 3, and this is the crucial one, myelin takes over, stepping down and transforming that high-frequency power into something useful. And finally, step 4, that perfectly converted energy enters the physical structure, actually energizing and building the body. It's an entirely alternative biological engine. And that brings us to a fascinating anatomical claim. The sources argue that our bodies are essentially running on two parallel tracks. You have the blood vessels carrying physical energy derived from that 20% of matter-based food, but running right alongside them is the nervous system, which they argue is not just for sending tiny electrical signals, but actually carries that massive 80% universal energy load we just talked about. The bridge between these two parallel systems? The text claims it's the lymph, interacting with both to manifest our physical reality.
Section 3. The human egg analogy.
To really visualize this, the framework uses a super vivid metaphor. It compares the human body to a simple egg. The soul of the man, that energetic core, is the yolk. The soul of physicality, which is the physical energy, is the white of the egg. And our hard bones, our skeleton and skull, act as the restrictive outer shell. Taking that analogy a step further, the texts boldly propose something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Just like you can chemically dissolve an eggshell and have the egg stay perfectly intact in a glass of water, humans could theoretically survive without our shell, meaning our bones and internal organs. The theory asserts that by purely controlling your internal energy fields, a human could exist in deep space as pure universal energy, essentially living as the yolk without ever needing a restrictive physical shell.
Section 4. Natural fibers and health.
Now, bringing this back down to earth, it turns out your wardrobe is actually a huge deal in this framework. The sources argue that wearing natural fibers, things like silk, wool, and cotton, allows a beautiful, continuous flow of that cosmic energy right into your skin's melanin. However, synthetic materials like polyester and plastics, they create a static energy. The claim is that this static actively blocks that crucial melanin to myelin transfer we focused on earlier, disrupting your body's energy supply and allegedly leading to all sorts of emotional issues and physical disease. In fact, the texts go so far as to call this perfect, uninterrupted coordination between melanin and myelin the true fountain of youth. It's a bold assertion. If you can maintain this natural energy absorption process without any synthetic disruption, humans could theoretically live for thousands of years. Aging, in this specific model, is simply defined as a disruption in this cosmic energy absorption. And the Keshe Foundation claims they are actively putting this theory into practice. According to the documents, they are developing products such as cosmic ray pens in coordination with the Chinese medical system. These devices are intended to utilize these exact energy transfer principles, working directly with those melanin and myelin fields to allegedly treat physical pain and even reverse complex diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Section 5. Transmutation and space travel.
Now, for the grand climax of this teaching, the framework asserts that to truly explore the wider cosmos, mankind must literally lose the mouth. The texts point out that depictions of aliens rarely feature mouths or large stomachs, and according to this theory, here's why. Evolving means moving beyond a digestive system that requires killing matter, whether that's a plant or an animal. To travel the stars, we supposedly have to learn to survive purely on that cosmic energy absorption we've been outlining today. This leads right into a concept of space travel that completely ditches rockets and clunky spacesuits. The theory suggests that by tuning your internal energy to any given location, matching the time, place, and position, you can dynamically manifest a physical form perfectly suited to that specific environment. You don't need a spacesuit to walk on the moon. You simply manifest a form that naturally exists there, which makes the whole concept of physical weightlessness completely irrelevant in the soul dimension. But there's a pretty massive catch here. The teachings firmly warn that this instantaneous, transmutive space travel is absolutely impossible as long as the emotion of killing still exists within the human essence. The text makes it clear. You cannot travel the peaceful dimensions of the universe if your energy field still holds any lingering desire to consume, kill, or destroy matter for your own survival. So, we'll wrap up this explainer with a profound question straight from the source material. It really challenges us to look inward at the very nature of our biology and our psychology. Are we actually ready to evolve past the emotion of killing, rewrite how we feel our bodies, and ultimately become true citizens of the universe? It's an absolutely radical framework, one that really pushes the boundaries of how we perceive life, energy, and our place in the cosmos. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for another grand slam in so many ways. Of course, there's much more to explore. You can go and listen from the beginning to the 651st Knowledge Seekers Workshop. But apparently, the explanation, as he said, of the 80%, where does that come from? He gave a beautiful explanation. So that was part of the revelation of understanding how we're feeding ourselves the 80%. And I noticed these hairs here, and as he said, even if these hairs are antennas, but even if you don't have any hair or you've lost the hair, that crosshatch, if you look at your skin, and I think once we develop these glasses, you will see very tiny, perhaps pico sort of tornadoes actually going into your skin. I'm just looking for in the beginning where he showed the arm with the hair on it. And is that it? Yeah, this is part of it, I think. Go ahead, Ike. I think you had a hand up. Somebody else? Yeah, here. Let me just.
Yeah, everybody know the uh, position of the lymph because it says the lymph, the bridge is the lymph. So is it the bridge between the myelin and myelin? So is the lymph in between the two?
I think that would be more internal, isn't it, the lymph? It doesn't go into
Yeah,
the middle layer, but that middle layer transfers to the lymph as I understand it. And again, I'm only have a very simple understanding, but it's doing.
I wish that we had Claudia's picture,
Mhm.
but the lymph nodes, okay, they sort of follow the kind of like the pattern of the nervous system and the blood flows and so on, everywhere in the body. So you'll see a whole bunch of little lymph nodes almost everywhere. And the interstitial fluid is also in the body, and that's where the lymph nodes come from. So it's kind of like a creation of the nodes. And I'm not sure exactly
I think there's
how you
a
would
difference
see
between
it.
the
Yeah.
lymph and the lymph.
Well, I think that's, well, I'm not 100% sure, but the interstitial fluid is everywhere. And that's what enables the lymph nodes and lymph to be produced from.
Right.
Anyone else? Or Ike, do you want to share any of your understanding?
No, I'm not sure. I understood that to be that the lymph is everywhere and is parallel to the blood vessels.
Yeah.
But then in this teaching, Mr. Keshe said the bridge is the lymph. So, and about the melanin on the outer skin and the myelin on the inside skin. And again, both the melanin is an extension of the skin. So those two statements, if the melanin and myelin are extension of the skin, which we know that the skin has 3 layers, and then he said the bridge is the lymph. So does it mean that the lymph is in between the melanin and the myelin, which makes it the 3 layers of the skin?
Passing it on. It's passing it on as I see it. But if we were to take every one of these little hairs and you would start to see bigger and bigger small vortexes, again, at the pico or perhaps even below level, the process of creation, of course, starts at the smaller and builds up to the larger or into the matter state, not the big bang from matter state into smaller. So in the future, we'll have these glasses. Now, even if you don't have the hair, these crosshatches, if you take a magnifying glass and look at your skin, every one of those crosshatches that you see is actually a vortex, whether you have the hair or not. So the skin is covered with the melanin. This is an antenna, so the melanin would be maybe picking it up from this, in addition to the color of the melanin, and transferring it to the myelin, which then transfers it to the lymph. Again, not a wired connection, but a field connection, I would say. So your entire body, whether you have the hair or not, you have hair in different places. These are all vortexes coming in, attracting energies. It's just amazing to hear Mr. Keshe say this whole structure is a leech to support the soul, and the soul, in a way, feeding into the physicality to maintain its structure. So
Mark,
yes.
So what are you saying? Are you saying, so where is the lymph? What's the position of the lymph? Because it says the bridge is the lymph. So what do you mean? What does he mean by that statement? Or what do you understand by it?
Bridge connects two things together, correct?
So that means it's in midpoint. It's in the middle.
Okay, as you see it, as you understand it.
No, I want to know what
I want
to know what you think.
Okay, I would say the myelin.
Heard they're picking the new director next week. You've been here 11 years.
Go ahead. Did somebody want to add something? Maybe something.
No, I think it was just microphone being
in the background. So if we have the human form, maybe I need a better line here. I don't know. Again, I'm not fully versed in this. Where's that eraser part? Okay. So if we go back to the pen somewhere, and let's get a thicker line, we can see it.
Years, it's yours. That's what I'm.
Somebody playing something in the background? Okay. So on the outside, right, and these are the legs. We'll just make it as simple as possible here, right? So what's happening is the color is the melanin. The converter or transfer is the myelin, M-Y-E-L-I-N. Now, in matter state, and I think they say we have 10 layers on the skin, but Mr. Keshe is just referring to general 3 layers. And this would be, I guess, where it's picked up from the lymph. So from the universe, the melanin, from the melanin to the myelin, from the myelin to the lymph, in crude terms.
So then, with your drawing, how come he says the bridge is the lymph? It doesn't look like the bridge is the lymph from your explanation.
Okay. No problem. We understand according to our own understanding. I think they're all bridges. One is connecting to the other. The next one's connecting to the other. So it's just passing it on as a runner. That's a bridge. He's got the stick in his hand. He passes it to the next runner in the marathon type of race where you have four different runners and they're passing it on. That's the bridge. It's working quite well. As he said, this is where 80% of your energy comes from. Do I have to understand it to use it? No, I understand very little of it, but it's feeding me 80% of the energies I need. Now, apparently, we can boost that up to 100% if we learn how to absorb correctly and in the right strength. As he said, if I always thought just the food we eat is 100% of the energy we take into our structure, but everyone by default position is absorbing 80% from the fields, converting it into a matter stage structure. That's what your whole physicality is set up to do, is a leech, pulling in energies and expelling energies as well. Any other comments? Again, we're just opening up something that children in the nursery don't understand. I'm not referring to you, Ike, but I'm just referring to myself and humanity, and the rest have never understood the energy dimension. And we're much more energy. This is our true nature, not our physical nature. But we've got hung up with the physicality, apparently.
So are the lymphatic glands another form of our soul's consciousness riding within our body?
Must be. They're all there for a purpose. They're not just there because they didn't have anything else to do. And they're all working in combination and collaboration. Much more powerful structure than we ever realized we had. But it'll get opened up as the universe looks quite empty. And when we develop new telescopes and other things, we'll see the universe is quite a busy place with probably a lot of entities going here and to, and all sorts of energies like you'd see in the Arctic or so on with the lights, these interactions between the Earth's fields and the sun's fields. And what do they call that? The northern lights, yes?
Mark, yes, I just very quickly, in Wikipedia, it's saying lymph is the fluid that flows through the lymphatic system, a system composed of lymph vessels, that's channels, and intervening lymph nodes. Okay, at the ends, you'll see all kinds of little nodes, whose function, like the venous system, is to return fluid from the tissues to be recirculated. At the origin of the fluid return process, interstitial fluid, the fluid between the cells in all body tissues, so it's everywhere, enters the lymph capillaries. This lymphatic fluid is then transported by larger lymphatic vessels through the lymph nodes, where substances are removed by tissue lymphocytes, and circulating lymphocytes are added to the fluid before emptying ultimately into the right or the left subclavian vein, where it mixes with central venous blood. But the interstitial fluid is everywhere, surrounding all the cells. And from the learning that we've had, the teaching, we also know that the lymph system, the lymph is energy. So it's in an energy state. And that's why the breathing has so much emphasis on transporting in and out of the body.
So what's the bridge Ike is searching for? He wants to know what the bridge is.
Well, it seems to me that the interstitial fluid, since it's between all the cells and between the cells in all body tissues, kind of gets a hold of things and ends up putting things into your lymph. But also, it's energy, and that has a different way. That's where the lungs are involved and the diaphragm movement. So I
And
think it would be really good if we could get a good picture of our own with the energy.
And is
Mr.
melanin,
Mr. Kesh said
the
the
melanin
bridge.
a bridge?
Huh?
Is the melanin a bridge between the universe and your skin? Would you consider that a bridge?
No, I need to understand first what Mr. Kesh meant before, because it is the essence, and then I can be able to translate it to other, whatever universe and every other thing. Because Mr. Kesh was specific. He said the bridge is the length. And Mark,
Yeah.
if I go by your understanding, yeah, you could look at it as a bridge because it's connected and connecting. So you're probably right. I'm not sure, but that drawing that you have in here. So with that, and then you look at the context of Mr. Kesh's statement, he's talking about the two items, Marilyn and myelin. And then he said that the bridge is the lymph.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it has to be a
Yeah.
midpoint. The lymph has
But
to
it
be the
is
mid.
because interstitial fluid, okay, which forms the lymphatic
The
system,
lymph, right? It's
okay,
everywhere.
it is everywhere. So it could be between every single cell, and it can, I mean, it creates the lymph.
So it
So
doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle. It could be like Max drawing on the side. You just have to transport it. It could be everywhere, like you said. So it needs
that's the
to be.
interstitial, yeah. And then the actual lymph nodes, I mean, they kind of go along with the different venous and arterial flowing and nervous system. They seem to sort of follow each other along, but the main thing is we have to remember that it's energy. So there is a different movement that's going to be
I
happening.
only put the blue color there just to show. I was reading an article where it says we don't have 3 layers, we have 10 layers. But again, they may be sub-layers of the basic layers. I don't know. This is just man's understanding I was reading. So when we take this whole structure, as Mr. Kesh was saying, and Dean asked that question on wrapping the structure in plastic, what happens? Polyester, rayon, neon, or not neon, but nylon, and all these synthetic petroleum-based insulators, what happens? We're wrapping ourselves in kind of like an electrical tape. But we didn't know because we never really fancied this energy dimension and didn't think wearing a bright color or, so on and so forth would have any kind of bad effect. It seems to have quite a good effect. Like, look at me, look at the colors I'm wearing. I feel kind of proud with it, but yet it has a negative effect in the energy dimension. And that's why Mr. Kesh said we'll be developing a line of clothing in the future. He said this affects your children greatly as far as their emotional balance. So, wrong imbalance of energies apparently could set emotions wrong. Emotions create asteroids and meteors and other little lumps, perhaps, in your body and so on, or other conditions. So by allowing the energy not only to go one way, but also to go the other way, and this is what he said about those problem with these colors, that you sweat over here and with the perspiration and things, and then the color in the article creates a kind of Gans material, and there's actually a reverse flow of toxin back in. Don't forget, the skin is one of your also eliminatory organs. Right? Isn't the sweat, as they always say, you go to a sweat lodge, you release toxins, but apparently the colors and the combination of the salts and so on forces a problem back in. I think Rick had mentioned that. So that was just a simple thing, and I thought the hair is a beautiful example of it. The hair, of course, we understand is nanomaterial, but at the root is where the vortex is. So you don't even need again, if we had to eat the amount of energy we need to sustain ourselves, I understand there wouldn't be enough time in the day to do it. you would be pecking more than a bird pecks. And if you've ever seen a bird looking for bugs and other, they're constantly on the search, hopping, pecking. He said if we didn't absorb that 80% automatically or as the default position, there wouldn't be enough time in the day to gather the energy we need if we were to take it in through the matter state. And of course, it's not the key of not eating. Look at me, I don't eat. It's the idea of destroying others that have been made in the image of the creator or have a soul and emotion and intelligence and can reproduce. They have to remain sacrosanct. We're not there yet. We have to accept, in a way, the condition we're in. This is the way it's working right now, but that condition and the elevation will come over time through systems and through your own understanding of how to operate your mechanism or your reactor.
So, question. So how could we as humans survive in the universe without the brain?
Yeah, that is kind of a funny thing. Smaller brain, more intelligence, did he say? Larger brain, less intelligence. What do scientists tell us? The bigger brains are smarter? No, the smaller brains are using a percentage of the universe or part of the universe to do their work. They don't need the larger brain. Is anyone else want to add anything about this brain? And of course, he said it's like the yolk, right? You can live without the structure of the physicality.
And what about people who have no brain, but they are very intelligent? I mean, if you think about it, I was thinking energy, maybe it's in the higher energy state. And when they look at the brain, there's no interior, but all the way around the skull, there is some neural tissue. But it seems to me that it probably is in a higher energy state, that you just don't see it. That's something to think about.
Yeah, no, there's many, many things to think about. It's just amazing as he said, but this is the way we're feeding ourselves. This is what he said he would reveal. How do you get that 80% of the energy he's been saying you absorb from the universe every second of every day? I mean, combined. And the breathing plays a part, and the eyes absorbing some energies plays another part, and probably some other things play parts that we're not even aware of yet. Organs within us are playing a certain part as well. So the whole structure is working as one unit in a way, in conjunction with other units. Any further comment on this idea of melanin and myelin? Again, he's just opening it up. There'll be more to share in the future and so on. How about the idea of the transmutation moving away from the emotion of killing? Now we know we're traveling the universe when we sleep, but now we want to do it in a conscious way. Oh, let me just erase all this. Clear all drawings. Shall we go to the announcements? Again, I didn't bring up the Keshe Foundation store. Maybe I should do that. Let's just see here. Again, this should be moving to Shopify. These are some of the products, offers, and so on within the Keshe Foundation, the Keshe Coin ID wallet, the One Nation Network, which he'll refer to again in the announcements and so on. Swiss conference is coming up in October, I believe, the 23rd and the 24th, 1 day for knowledge seekers, 1 day for governments, corporations, and ambassadors and other things. Here's the cosmic ray balls and so on and so forth. And of course, this store will grow to many, many new products in the coming time. I think he said in the transcript that they'd be releasing maybe even before the end of the year in collaboration with the Chinese wellness program, hundreds of wellness products to be released perhaps before the end of the year. Let's just see if we can find that. and this will be added to the store or the offer. Again, it may only be in China because of the fact that certain, let's say, regulatory bodies don't always approve something because of its efficacy. They approve something because it's been paid for, or pay to play. And this is what he said, that the Keshe Foundation is not paying and will not pay $100 million or $300 million to get an approval of the FDA in the United States. So here, we come in with quite a number of products. Okay, he's talking about the health structure in China. We'll just divert to this for a minute. We think the best products in China health, the structure, will appear sometime before the end of this year, and a large number of it. It's not one or two. We saw the beads, we saw other things come into the store. We come in with quite a number in the next 2 years for over and near 100 diseases, conditions, and everything else. So again, if you think the knowledge seekers aren't doing anything, Mr. Keshe isn't doing all of this on his own. But as I said in another location, I'm sure he's overseeing the process, as any good manager, professor would do. So there'll be hundreds of conditions that will be addressed. And again, if it's not in your country, you may find it valuable to actually travel to China to avail yourself of something you may need. Now do we see how the feeding, the wellness, the energy, other things are going to be delivered? Let's just see if we can find the announcements. If we can, I need to back this up, and we'll listen to the announcements. And then some of the questions, especially of what we were talking about with this energy, blocking the plastic clothes. And as he said, you will not find any sort of plastics in his wardrobe unless they sort of slipped in somehow by mistake. Audio of Mr. Keshe, okay. No, let's see, I think it's past this. It's more closer to the, maybe we'll look at that video again at 2:02, and then we'll hear Mr. Keshe's comments on the video I tried to play, I think, in the opening segment. Let's just see. And again, this is a live production, as they say. Okay, 139. Okay, delete this video. We sort of did that. I'm sure Gail has done that as well. We carry on, okay. And let's go to 140. I think that's where Mr. Keshe comes in. Or perhaps it's the wrong video at that position. Let's see if we can just find this. Yeah, okay. What we'll do is we're going to go and listen to this video again, and if we're right on it. Okay, this one. Yeah. And then we'll hear Mr. Keshe makes quite extensive comments on this video. I can't seem to locate the announcements at this point, but we will find them. So we're going to listen to about 20 minutes of what Mr. Keshe is saying about the whole structure, the One Nation Network, the coin, and some other very pertinent information that's been shared. Feel free to stop it, or if anyone has something they'd like to say, or bring up, or share. Okay, let's go to it.
Across our planet, millions of families begin each day carrying a silent question. Will there be enough food for the children? Will there be medical care when they are sick? This is the weight of survival, a shadow that has followed humanity for generations. But shadows only exist where there is light waiting to break through. Now imagine a different possibility, a world where survival is no longer a struggle, but a birthright. At the center of this vision is the Keshe coin, a humanitarian bridge to a new era of stability. Consider a family of 4. In this illustrative model, the father receives 30 Keshe coins. The mother receives 30, and the children 20 each. A foundation of 100 Keshe coin per family of 4. Each Keshe coin is internally valued at 1,000 euros. This isn't just a number. It is the removal of fear. It is the end of the survival game. With basic security, this family gains something even more valuable than money. They gain time. Time for the father to listen to his son's dreams. Time for the mother to teach her daughter's curiosity. They engage with the peace game, transforming global cooperation into a collective achievement. The One Nation Network connects every home, ensuring no one is left behind in the dark. Science and technology are no longer weapons of competition, but tools for human flourishing. We see the results in the eyes of the children. They are free to build, to create, and to lead. The home becomes a sanctuary of learning, where the heritage of the past meets the promise of tomorrow. One nation, one planet, one race. These are not just words, they are the blueprint for our evolution. When humanity is freed from the pressure of survival, the human soul may finally elevate. We look beyond our borders, beyond our atmosphere, toward the infinite reality of the universe. Our destiny is written in the stars, and we are finally ready to reach for them. Scientific breakthroughs in plasma technology and space travel open doors we once thought locked. We are travelers on a journey of discovery, united by a common purpose and a shared light. A family free to build the future is a family ready to join the cosmic community. The transition has begun, from the hardship of the earth to the wonder of the heavens. This is our moment. This is our choice, to rise together as one. The future is not something that happens to us. It is something we build with love and science. Let us step forward into the light of a new dawn. A world where every child is a star and every family is free. One nation under the infinite sky. One race moving toward the truth. Join us for the family, for the future, for the soul.
Okay, so that was the second time we played this in a way. So it's just giving you an idea. And of course, this little placard here gives you a deeper understanding. Again, it's all in the process of being delivered. And you say, how can the Keshe technology support humanity with feeding and the rest? Well, they're using the technology that those in the universe have used, where they create things out of fields. That's why there's no fighting for anything, because they create what they need out of the interaction of fields. And this is why the foundation will be able to provide, because what they're using is basically mined out of the fields of the universe, which is unlimited. There's no limitation. It's just a matter of understanding how it works to be able to deliver it. So any comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll hear Mr. Keshe's comments on this new video. What we'll do is we'll just switch over this screen for the actual transcript, and we'll follow along as he discusses this video in a way and other developments that are happening within the Keshe Foundation. Any comments? There we go.
All right, that's the end of that video.
Thank you very much. That brings home how we stand and where we stand, how we're going to change. But as I was explaining to knowledge seekers past couple of days, they said how this is going to work. I said it's very simple. How did cryptocurrency come in? How other coins came in and they reached values of tens of thousands. This is backed by people. This will go much faster than any cryptocurrency once it's fully floating. It's become an international currency.
Anyone want to say anything about cryptocurrency in the Keshe coin? This is not a crypto coin. At this point, this is a coin for the work within the structure of the Keshe Foundation. And this coin, if I can bring it up here, this is the Constitution. This coin actually has a Constitution, which I'll just sort of briefly run through the 23 pages, or some of them perhaps, and we'll go back to the video that people could actually stop this recording and see what has been written here. And as he said, some of the new rules or bylaws were changed by 90% of the members in the Keshe Foundation Association. So this coin is laid out with a number of different categories here. Constitutional principles of the Keshe coin: peace, voluntary participation, responsible stewardship, transparency, accountability, sustainability, respect for applicable law, respect for national sovereignty. So again, well thought out and is part of the structure of the Keshe Foundation Association, as I understand, or the coin, which is all being connected together. So I'm just scrolling through this that others can stop the video in the future. If you haven't seen, as you see, the World Peace Treaty is an integral part of the Keshe coin, and that's why I think this document continues or concludes, I should say, with the copy of the World Peace Treaty, which is again part of the new science, new ethos, and new language, and here it is. So to reserve your coins or to do some other things within the Keshe Foundation, create spin-offs or do further research, the World Peace Treaty is a prerequisite. Anyone want to add anything about this? All right, let's go back to the transcript. But that was a constitution, and again, it's not put together on the back of an envelope, let's say. I think it's been well thought out and rehashed and rethought out and rehashed again. So this is not something that was just whipped up by an AI, let's say. At least that's my understanding. Anyone else? Do you think the AI created the Keshe coin constitution? I don't think so.
Because people do it. And what we call it is internal, and it is part of the work of the Keshe Foundation. As we announced last week, the Keshe group in Austria met last Monday, and they voted by 90% vote that the Keshe coin become part of the work and acceptable within the structure of the institute. And so now we will register different Keshe companies and structures into it, that you all can use it as long as you register as a member in your country or in the Austrian connection to start with. And as ONNs are leaving and it's with you. And the coins become operational in the structure of the VPN of the Keshe Foundation. Gradually, within the next 12 months, every single one of you will have access, every single person on this planet will have access to change it. And the way we have set it up is that nobody can play and speculate on it. 1,000 stays 1,000. And then we fraction it, how much everything worth. At the moment, we fraction it parallel value to 1,000 euro. But in time, everything will have the same kind of values across the world. We don't need to use euros, dollars, or any other currency. The society will decide on it. And as I can envisage in the next few months or couple of years, they encourage you to buy more Apple programs or more orange juice programs or more burgers, taste and energy, 2 for a price of 1, which you pay 0.001 of 1 coin for 1 year supply of burgers and chips.
Did he say 0.01 of 1 coin? How much would that be? Any mathematicians in the participations? So for very little, you can be supplied burgers and chips for 1 year. Now you can see how far the coin could go. And again, how could they deliver burgers and chips for a very small amount? And there's I might add, there's 1,000% profit in each sort of apple. So there's probably a lot more in here because they're creating it out of the energies through the cosmic rays. You don't actually get the physical burger and the chips. You get the energy of the burger and the chips, which your reactor would normally take in through the mouth and convert it into energy, absorb that energy or replicate that energy and get rid of the rest, which is almost all of it. So now the same process will be happening where you don't have to chew your energy to get it. It'll be absorbed or worked through as we learn to work with the fields of the universe. And then it's truly, again, an immortality, sort of, if you can play off these dimensions of energy against the dimension of matter state, as I understand it. Any comments? So this is what's happening. This is why the coin will go so far. They won't be looking so much for physical resources, although they will have a small amount of perhaps tomatoes and other things that they'll replicate, and this will be converted into cosmic rays and then delivered to you. Again, the taste may only last a microsecond, but those who have participated in some of these things will know that you are feeling rather satisfied for a period of time. And then once that is depleted or you've used that energy, you can go back into a room or another location and order another energy sort of drink. I don't actually know how they'll have it sort of worked out. And as this process happens, it should ingrain within you the way to do it without needing an apple or a burger or a chip from the Keshe Foundation. I see this as the long-term reach. That's what most of the systems Mr. Keshe develops. It sort of balances out or trains something or puts back into an original position something that was moved out of position, that's all. Any thoughts or comments? So again, privileged and humbled to be here, even to be discussing this, never mind how to bring it across this planet. But that's already been worked out and thought through. This is not the first time this has happened in the universe, but right now the man has been chosen to go through this process. And as Mr. Keshe said, this planet creates a condition of love, which is not found in the universe, through the smells and other things. So the plants have done a lot of work as a, in a way, sort of a bridge, if I can use that term, between the soul of the planet and man in a way, somehow, to make a conversion to create this emotion of love that's really unconditional love, which is not really found across the universe. This is why Mitra was able to attract the creator to this planet at this point, because the creator was looking for or to be loved or attention, as I understand it. Again, this is rather new to me in a way, and I'm still digesting much of it. We continue.
We see this coming up. We see it operating. And once we add the universal, what we call systems, cosmic ray connection systems, it makes the systems like what we see with Mars obsolete. You don't need no satellite. There are no expenses. So everything will change.
So again, the internet, the delivery of the food, the energy, it'll all be very similar to what Tesla did, but much more expanded. Tesla understood a small part of it in a way, although he was successful a number of times. But this is where the cosmic ray antenna, which is in development, under development, being perfected, will be added to these One Nation network systems that are being offered by the Keshe Foundation. So now you understand how it's going to be delivered, and you may be able to give up, most likely, your internet connection and join in a cosmic ray sort of connection, no satellites needed. And there are no expenses. Maybe, again, 0.01 of a Keshe coin per year. Did anyone take that? If I took $1,000, if I had 1,000 divided by 0.01, it would be $100. So for $100 a year, you can feed yourself. For maybe less than that, you can have an internet connection provided by those who've gotten the One Nation network and so on. I don't know what the capacity will be of that One Nation network, how many people could join at a time. But again, this is all, they'll be developed into a new generation as well, I believe. This is just the first sort of release, as we saw with the Apple phone, where it went to model this and model that and so on and so forth.
It's just, it took a long time to get here. Now we are here, we start seeing the change. Watch the next video, which comes out next week, hopefully. It gives your responsibility to your governments, and the government, the way the governments can start using the coins as part of the backup. The other coins we see now in the market for 50,000, 60,000 has no value. It's people who value it. It's people who brought it in and made it a game. And now this one makes no one billionaire. But everybody is safe and secure. You can keep it. If you don't spend your 10 coin or your 30 coin today, and you hold it, and you use it next year. You use it, maybe you put the house together, it's 3 of you, 4 of you in the house, and you collect about 100 coins a year. You put your coins together over 2 years, 3 years, because you're working outside, this become part of your asset. And in time you change it for a house. In time you change it for a trip to the moon. Nobody knows how this thing will develop. Now that is, as we said, the cat is out of the bag.
So all of you, and myself included, in a small way, have helped the cat to come out of the bag. And as he said, nobody knows how this thing will develop. I think they have an idea, as this isn't the first time, but this is a unique situation as well. So our coin is not a cryptocurrency, it's an internal coin, as I said, but the interesting part is this coin is backed by gold, and it's gold mined again out of the universal structure. And of course, in 2025, Mr. Keshe demonstrated this process of creating gold to the point where I think the Chinese have signed on for about 400 tons, 1 ton at each location. You can see that video from 2025 in the Intercontinental Hotel in Beijing, approved by the political and the military authorities and so on. And the gold was thoroughly tested and confirmed. And of course, that wasn't the first time Mr. Keshe has played with the Chinese and gold, as we've seen some other videos and some mining mountains and copper mountains and so on. He set a big structure down internally to the Chinese structure, as he's been sort of playing in and out of China maybe since 2017 or 18 or before. And obviously has made impressions on some, and some academics have sort of resigned in a way, or sort of been relegated to a different structure as they didn't quite understand the structure, and of course said this is an impossibility according to current scientific understanding. But yet it's been documented and proven. So, with the gold and with other materials that were created out of fields. Again, this was part of also sort of demolishing the Big Bang theory of how material is created, not from the top down, but more from the bottom up through the interaction of fields until they reach an interaction with inertia in the matter state. And that's been shown, and we've played that video many times. Let's go back. Feel free to jump in.
We are just opening the door. And as we saw, somebody created a game, call it a Bitcoin. This and it gets value, but now the Keshe coin is in the structure of the Keshe Foundation work. So we control it. Nobody can ever use it, and nobody speculates on it, and everybody has it. It's the same as when we produce enough gold. What's the gold? My kilo of gold I created in the kitchen, you created, and you dig a mine. It's the same. And this is the whole purpose behind this. Currency that every man on every planet and every part of this planet can use. A currency which is for one race, and we all value it the same. And with this, we'll see the end of abuse. And when you watch the next video next week, you'll understand more how it's going to affect you. It's going to change your lives beyond your imagination. Beyond your imagination. When a mother doesn't need to worry about the food on the table, the mother becomes a mother and teaches the neighbor. And when a mother doesn't need to go to work from 9 to 5 to have a food on the table, the mother spends time with the child to bring a correct child up. It won't happen over one generation because a lot of mothers themselves are not educated to be a perfect mother, but they strive, and in the programs we gradually teach how to teach the soul of the man.
So again, we're all very impatient or too much in a hurry. As he said here, it won't happen over one generation because a lot of mothers themselves are not educated to be a perfect mother. So this is all, again, part of a process. But some of the knowledge seekers and others, universities, will start testing this structure. As I said, a generation is 20 years, so it won't happen in one generation, but we're going to see quite an immense amount of progress in those 20 years. And maybe that's just something they're putting out now, but it will develop and come into fruition in a decade. Let's say. We don't know. It all depends how we respond, the governments respond, corporations, and so on. Or they'll be left to play in the matter state of the sandbox while we move into the understanding of the energy dimension. There'll sort of be two structures at the same time. And again, one is quite harsh to live in for most, and the other is quite pleasurable to live in. As he said, we're already in heaven. We've landed in heaven, I'm saying. All we need to do is end the killing. So we're already in the most beautiful place in the matter state in the universe. Whether it's this universe or across the universe, I'm not sure. But it's the killing dimension that has to be sort of wiped from our emotions and our memory. And this will happen as well. Any comments? So it's part of not a day job. And of course, I've been sort of the same, wanting things to happen sooner. But apparently, we need more knowledge and more understanding. And it's being brought along the right way. You're just asked to support and expand and promote.
And then you'll see your child becomes gradually as part of the society. Very soon we'll introduce the companies which are in gaming will not be access. People who work or play through the gaming, especially fighting games, we bring restrictions on use of the cash coin on them, which means we change the gaming, which is the biggest problem at the moment in the society for the youth is this violence, which has creeped in and is normal to our children.
So everyone realize that certain things you will not be able to purchase with the cash coin, as they're controlling it. Internally, you will not be able to buy fighting or killing games. Other games would probably be acceptable, but not fighting and killing games. And maybe they'll introduce some other games, as he said, other toys, other games, and so on, even lines of clothing, which I'd like to get to. At least we can understand that before we go to the Dome of Peace. Any comments? Any thoughts? Any questions? It's all being gifted. The Creator loves you humans, as I understand it, not only you humans, but the entire creation, as He's made the whole creation in the image of Himself, not just man.
There's a way to curb it, and we will curb it very, very soon. In the next few months, through the cash coin operation, coins cannot be used for gaming. And when people play games, we block. You have a choice. You become a peaceful, truly, not just coming and cashing coin. We build in parameters. We follow where your coin goes, and gradually we uproot this new American fashion of killing is a thing to do. And I said to a diplomat very recently, as we see in the Middle East, the people have not understood what is going to about to happen if it happens the way it shows itself. The Vatican worked to split Russia in 1990s through John Paul. And Vatican has chosen American Pope, and United States will be split. That was the whole plan. And Iran game was part of this game. Do not be surprised, as we saw the split of the Russian Empire, USSR, to 13 nations plus, that by the end of the Middle East war, America will be in the States and not as one nation. The world governments will not allow ever such a force to be gathered together that creates such a mayhem for decades on this planet. And we've seen it. We saw John Paul opening up, ripping up apart the Eastern Bloc and USSR. And you should have been knowing the pattern of the work, how the other Pope had to take silence when he emptied all the reserves of the Vatican. The American Pope is put in to bring the end of the United States. Exactly what happened to Russia, but the Americans were too proud to see it. And this war we see is one of the ways that you will see the end of superiority and the split of the United States to maybe 20 different nations. Depends how they come together and how it be a strike in the moment diagonally across, that we don't have states in the middle with no access to the ports. As I said to them, with the new technology, ports are irrelevant. Or we bring like states like Arizona and that side, that part of the connection towards California as one state. But sure, what happened to what we call USSR is splitting into 13, 14 nations and the division of the rest of the Eastern Bloc. Was chosen because of the Pope was chosen. Now the same thing is replicating in the United States. United States for sure will not be united very soon. And they put the seed, they brought them into the war to weaken them, and the rest of the world, with help of themselves, will split themselves up. And we see a beginning of the peace by changing this behavior of warmongering. And if the United States changes, splits into 40 or what we call 14, there's a possibility of 20 nations. Then they decide on themselves, and none of them will spend money anymore on wars and making weapons, as they cannot afford it. Many of them will not be. The coastal lines will become deeper inside, California joining Arizona and that side, and that kind of thing with the Texas and Dallas and everything else, and the West Coast, and the East Coast, and New York, and other places on the east side will go deeper inside. We see at the moment there's a plan of about 20 nations out of the 50, where economically they can support themselves.
Okay, maybe we'll just leave that for right now, but there's some sort of plan afoot that they're not going to allow this kind of powerful. And he also said this applies to Russia, I think, and Brazil, and perhaps even China. That there'll be no more of these superpowers to make weapons and wage wars. Whether this will happen again over a generation or two or three or sooner, I'm not privy to that. But this is what's been sort of seen or understood of the way. And as Mr. Keshe said in previous workshops, there's people in the United States that are being paid that this process actually manifests itself. So there's a lot happening in the background that we don't see in the news. I thought I'd go to the idea about the herbs on this planet here, and the flowers and so on, and how they've created this, okay. I'm not sure exactly where it starts and who was asking that question. Yeah, he's talking about bringing in some things which the certain structures require. Okay, in the chat room. Okay, Azar asked a question. I think this was part of her question. And again, talking about the souls, even in natural disasters, have already become aware and are preparing themselves. They know what is about to occur, even though it doesn't inform the physicality of it. The soul, nothing is hidden from the soul as we understand it. So even earthquakes, natural disasters, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, soul knows that it's approaching and what its result will have on itself. Okay. Any comments while I'm scrolling? He was talking here. Maybe we'll just go here. She was asking if the souls that have departed are in a good place and so on. And he was then talking about the emotion. And this is where apparently the creator was sort of attracted. It's a combination which has created this unique emotion. It doesn't exist in the universe. Okay, maybe we'll just start at 2:30. I'll just move this up a bit. And we'll just go right there and listen to a bit how fortunate we are to have this unconditional giving, which is not found in the universe. It's here. And he attributed that to not only the tilt and the other perhaps planets in the solar system supporting that, but the idea of the smell of the plants and the flowers, or the rose in specifically. This is the emotion of love or unconditional giving. So as I said earlier, maybe if you're having a hard time with someone, you can ask them to go smell a rose. And when they come back, they may be a slightly different position. Or you could bring that oil of rose into your home, as he said. Well, he didn't say that, but he said we're connected to this oil of rose. Somebody was saying there's no roses in their area, but I'm sure you can find the oil of rose. Let's see if we can listen a bit here.
Where unconditional giving. The whole universe works under the balance of the energies. Earth has a peculiarity that emotion, especially emotion of love, which is giving unconditional, has creeped in. It's something the universe does not know. As I said, the planet Earth is known as a planet of four-wheelers at the moment, but essentially is known the planet where there's an emotion people give beyond their own. Everything else in the universe is unbalanced. Here, the emotion of giving, the way we know, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist anywhere in the universe, but the emotion of love is what killed what they call was the final trap, which Mitra brought the creator to it. You have to feel it. Otherwise, everything is the same. Look at Jupiter, look at Saturn, look at other planetary and universes. They have all the magnetic fields. It's the combination which has created this emotion, and it's unique.
And you know, this total giving, if you look at the creation of the Universal Council video on the Keshe Foundation website, you'll see there's some kind of Chinese writing in there with an award and a little sort of ribbon. This was the Li Fang Award that Mr. Keshe received from China, one of the only outside of China persons to ever receive this award, and that was recognized from China. Mr. Keshe was recognized as a total giver, or a bringer of peace and science in a way. So he was given this Li Fang Award. You'll see that, or you could sort of research it on your own and see what the Li Fang, but China recognized that in Mr. Keshe in 2018 or 17, I believe he received that, what they call the Li Fang Award.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
You're welcome.
So I think you've already answered the next question I was going to ask from Theodora in the Q&A. What is the true meaning of happiness and compassion? We all experience the, quote, darkness of the light, unquote, through conflict and misunderstanding. How can we rise above everything happening around us? Why do we suffer? Why do we weep without truly wanting to?
Try to transfer to the energy of the soul and see if it still exists in that level. Be it the suffering, be it everything else. Next Thursday, I'll open something to do. Next Thursday teaching, especially the second part, will have nothing to do with Keshe Foundation teaching. It's something important for all your knowledge seekers to understand. It's a very fundamental point that we will just report. You're not part of it, but knowledge seekers will report to you what has happened, what is the position, and then you understand how even that part of the work of the foundation comes into a different level.
Okay, so another major, it sounds like a major announcement. He said, but the knowledge seekers are not really involved with it, but it's something about the structure and so on. So we'll hear, again, remembering the knowledge seekers workshop will be at 6 p.m. Central European summertime, unless otherwise indicated. But that's what he was indicating here. So adjust your times.
Emotion is the characteristics of when a certain field of strength in the universal fields in their interaction create conditions with the matter state. And that, in a way, the third level, which what we use as vegetation, increases the emotion. Nothing, and this is why Earth unique, the condition has been created on this planet, which mainly through what we call plants and herbs, which does not exist as such in other part of the universe, create a condition with encourage the emotion. We don't smell a stone. We smell a plant, and to it, we show an emotion, the smell of rose. That sense of a smell creates a condition we know as emotion. We love it. We fall in love with it. Universal fields have emotion through the magnetic fields. You still have a smell in the dimension, if you call it a smell, in the dimension of the fields. But the physicality, the introduction of this middle element, which we call vertical people, between the humans and the fixed planet, has created a condition which we call the emotion. And this is unique to this universe. And because of it, we create an emotion that we fall in love with. We like. Sense of a smell that does not exist in most of the world of creation in other races. But this use of planetary system, what we call the Earth, zinc, copper, magnesium as a solid, then the vegetation in the middle, and then the human race. And it's the way I explained at the beginning of teaching today. The structure of our brain goes that way. Has created a field band, we call it emotion.
So could that be the bridge, Ike, as he said, between the soul of the planet and us are these vertical people that have helped create this emotion within us that's attracted Mitra and the Creator, which doesn't exist apparently in the universe. It's all a balance of fields.
And we can only get that with plants.
It created some sort of emotion in combination with everything else. Even the movements of the other planets supported this somehow. But he said it didn't exist in the universe. Does he mean this universe or does he mean the Unicos?
Well, you gotta play it again because he's talking about mostly smell. And with the smell, we get that type of emotion in plants. But in the universe, the smell is universal fields. So how do we smell universal fields?
In your dream, have you ever smelled something in your dream? I don't remember, but other people have talked about smelling things in their dreams. Again, it's a magnetic field smell, not a smell from the physical flower.
Yeah, but that's the point. That's what he's attributing that to smell. So, the smell gives the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then he compared that to the same type of emotion or smell, but that's you in the universe, but that's with the universal cosmic universal fields or something. Anyway, it's interesting to explore more.
I mean, if you saw a car in your dream or a color in your dream or your travels, let's say that's the right way to couch it, was there a blue color or was it made up of magnetic fields? Was there a car in your travels or when you sleep or your dream? Or was that car that you were sitting in and you made up of magnetic fields that you interpreted that through the brain structure and so on? The car wasn't really physically there, but it was there in the dimension of fields. And that's the dimension of the Creator or the universal community, the energy dimension. That's why he's saying you can travel without the rockets and the UFOs. It's actually a much slower way to travel. This way is much more instantaneous. And this is the way the Creator moves, transmutation, rather than moving the physicality. And again, I don't think you have to leave the planet to go anywhere. You just create that. If the universe exists within you, you should be able to create any dimension and experience it without moving. As we saw the fella in the Ubisos unit on the moon, his hands were moving as if he was his physicality was on the moon, but his physicality was on the moon in the energy dimension. Yeah, perhaps. That's why you saw the physical arm moving on this planet. He was doing the same on the moon, but in an energy body, perhaps. He said he was picking up stones and trying to bring them back in the energy dimension. His physical arm was actually moving.
Main factor, and this is why we said the Creator fell in love with Earth, is what we call heaven. Humanity is looking for heaven all over the world. Heaven, in the true sense, is this planet, once man start killing. And it's unique to this planet because of the bandwidth of the fields which vegetations, which flowers, the herbs create in the body of the man. They've done from the beginning.
So I think that is it right there. And it's unique to this planet because of the bandwidth of the fields which vegetations, which flowers, the herbs create in the body of the man. And they've done from the beginning. So would you say that's sort of a bridge in a way?
And this emotion with attachment to the smell has even brought dinosaurs into killing, eating. We follow the scent, and animal follows the scent, the smell, to kill. We take a rose, we smell it, and we know the smell of love, because that the smell is very tuned. The oil of rose is one of those which is more tuned to our emotions than anything else. When we fall in love, we give, what do we give to our lover? A rose. And when you fall truly with someone, then you understand what it means. You make a garden that it always has a rose, that every time you see your love, you give a rose to. That smell, that scent is which does not exist in the universe.
Okay, perhaps we'll leave it there and we'll leave the rest of it. You'll have to investigate about the clothes and so on, and about this plastic wrap that we seem to be wrapping ourselves in. Even though it's fashionable, it's light, it's comfortable. I always knew there was something about it, but again, we're just sort of opening this understanding up. The same with a number of things, as he said, these plastics in the toothbrushes, the clothing, none of that is in his wardrobe. And people that understand it will move in that direction if possible. And as he said also in this workshop, they'll have a line of clothing and new materials that will be introduced in the next period of time that will allow the free flow of fields and not be blocking and interfering. And that goes with the shoes and feet as well. That's why I think it was encouraged to sort of connect with the earth by taking your shoes off for 20 or 30 seconds or a minute and so on, and sort of balancing that condition. I don't understand a lot of it, but there's obviously more to understand about it. Okay, let's go to the Create the Dome of Peace, which is part of the work of the Keshe Foundation, and then we'll go to Alex's teaching and the session will end. Unfortunately, Alex doesn't have internet at his current location, and that may last a period of time, but we'll see. Hopefully he gets a One Nation network or somebody near him does and can connect to the internet. I don't know if the cosmic ray antennas will be finished by fall, but they're certainly in the process of being finished or completed at this level. Okay, while I'm thinking about it, let's put this one in the chat. Or maybe I can wait till Alex is teaching, but let's just enter this in there now. Okay. Let's see here. And this will be something on the Ubiso's unit, which of course Okay, there it is. And that's the one, can Parkinson's and Alzheimer's can be reversed. Okay, let's go to the Dome of Peace if we can. And this is something you're invited to participate in on a daily basis at 9 p.m. every day. Start opening up that mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energy dimension. And this is part of that process. Even for elevation of yourself, as you elevate the others, we know that in return, there's no giving without receiving. So this is a process of self-elevation as well. Not only do you give to the soul of leaders and religious leaders and so on, but in that process, fields come back to you for your own confirmation or elevation. And the beauty, as we said in this this sort of session or gathering, and again, you can extend it as early and as often as you'd like, is that nobody fails this test. So be confident and understand that you're actually making a difference in the work that you do, and you can be proud of the person you are and the difference you're making. So we'll just leave that there. Again, being a two-step process, releasing Gans waters, creating the Dome of Peace. This is the first step of creating the Dome of Peace. So you can release Gans waters at any time, but collectively it's done at 12 and 18 p.m. on Sunday, and you can release it any other time. So this is something for the physicality to do to bring about the peace on this planet, or as he said, through this One Nation network and some of these other systems, we're going to connect to all the Ganses you've made, the waters you've released, and everything. I guess this perhaps is when the cosmic ray antennas come in, but it's all going to be part of the network. So it's a two-step process, something for the physicality to do, releasing energies, and then the second step is the collective power of the souls. As we show the Gans water being released collectively, then we add to that the energy dimension, which we know our true nature is energy. We've come from energy. We've appeared in the matter state. This is kind of the end of the line, and we're going back into the energy dimension. But now we're learning we could play with both simultaneously and gain that fountain of youth or an aspect of immortality if we understand absorption and how our structure works.
I don't know if anyone wants to read this Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I
With a
will
nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This is from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
So feel privileged that you can help deliver the peace collectively, and this is something for the physicality to do. If you're not sure how to make a GANs, you go to the Keshe Foundation wiki. There's some simple instructions. It's rather elementary, but you can explore that or ask one of the other knowledge seekers how to make a different GANs or some of the basic GANSes. As Mr. Keshe said, he uses hundreds of different GANSes, and we've just been introduced to the basic four with the copper and the zinc and so on. All right, let's hear the second step of creating the Dome of Peace, which is where we put the souls together and again create another beautiful bouquet in the energy dimension. Although, as we see from the Brazilian team, This is the Sunday release, the beautiful placard they made. But every day, Wednesday and every day at different times, Wednesday is at 6 p.m., they actually have a formal meeting. You can join on the Telegram or one of these other locations, Keshe.Brazil perhaps. I'm not sure. Usually I join on the Telegram and repeat this intention to create the peace dome. It's an actual meeting that's provided in English and Portuguese. So feel free to join them if you're looking for a physical meeting to be part of, and that's very nice too. And of course, they've been carrying on with this process for a number of years already. And the Chinese have been doing it for perhaps a decade before that. So again, we're all sort of coming on board in a bigger way. And this will show itself in the future time. Our work. Again, it's not a day job. It's not you put the cake in the oven and 45 minutes later it comes out and it's ready to be eaten. This is not a day job. But again, the beauty of it is no one fails this test. So normally you at 9 p.m. you could just take a nanosecond of your life, or you could take 1 minute of your life, whatever you'd like to do, and continue that process pulsing through your structure to the soul of the world leaders, that they find peace and balance and kindness and all the good emotions you'd like to see embedded, that the soul may pick it up and change a dimension within the dimension of physicality of these souls that are quite low and need elevation. It's not an easy or a short-term process, apparently. But it's all coming into fruition, and you should be proud and humbled to take part in it when you can. I think the Keshe Foundation is the best place to be in and around. I've said this for quite a while now. I can't find something better to do. I don't know why, but that just seems to be my nature, because it's fulfilled some of my dreams and wishes about bringing peace to this planet, which I had strong desires to do. Even before the Keshe Foundation, trying to work through laws and politics and the rest, but that entire game is rigged. And I felt sort of down about that, because in that physical dimension, you don't get very far. But in this energy dimension, this is how we're going to bring the change once we reach the collective understanding of people participating in this process. So join us on a regular basis. We'll carry a little piece of a very large carpet. And now I think we'll go to Alex's teaching, unless there's others who want to add anything to the, or something they'd like to share. Okay, let's, Alex again is at a remote location somewhere in the universe or on the planet, I'm not sure, but he sent us a 44-minute teaching. So let's go through it. Any other comments, questions, thoughts, something you want to share, something that's been on your tip of your tongue, which happens to me at times, and many times I don't say anything, but I'm learning to sort of follow that little, let's say, impetus that's given to me at times. All right, let's go to thank you, Alex. And again, I know you're here on the energy level. Let's hear what you have to say this week. And this one is called Scoric Capillaries, and this is for July 19th. Thank you again, Alex.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. And we'd like to get into some business.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. And I'm very happy that you're all here. And I hope you enjoy the session. This is the Keshe Foundation and Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. We're in the intermediate Matter Tech series. Today's subject is capillaries. My name is Alexander. It is July the 19th of 2026, and this is part of the Keshe American Plasma Education Series. So as we're trying to continue and move ahead, and we want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind, because the subject is getting very complex. But actually, in many ways, it's getting more simple because we're getting more direct to the point. We talked about the Lord of the Rings, plantations, screwworms, and today we will discuss capillaries. So we need to review a couple of things here. We've been talking about the rings of duality and how it mimics the structure of the cells. And so here we have star formations head to head and how they create a maggrav, but not in singularity, but in duality. And that becomes very important to understand. When we look at the cosmic egg rings, we talk about different rings, like the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit of the Rings, and which one is it? And the thing is where there are dual rings, and then where space turns towards the opposite poles, so that we create a charge, we create energy in motion, and we create a direction. So when we talk about the Lord of the density, gravity seeks density, and that density operates within the Coulomb barrier. A maggrav is constantly in balance, and then we see there's a duality of concentric rings and spirals. So before we really delve into it, we need to review something. We talked about a long time ago surface to volume ratios, and just so that we understand, the same ratio is reflected in areas. And if we can compare the perimeter to area ratio, so the key word here is ratio. So when we have, say, 4 squares that are equal, and we put them in a box formation, it exposes the sides of the boxes that are open, and it exposes 8 faces. And so we have 4 boxes with 8 faces, and the ratio is 2-to-1. But if we get smaller, in other words, go down to a single box, it only has 4 faces, but it's 1 box. So in other words, there are more faces, but less boxes, and the ratio increases. So instead of 2-to-1, it is now 4-to-1. So through this process, we've literally doubled the surface to volume ratio. And when we change the ratio, we change the charge. So the smaller the object, the higher the ratio, the higher the negative charge. That's the rule. And if you follow that rule, you have no problem. That applies to all matter state. So it's a very easy navigational tool. Higher ratio is a higher negative charge. So when we look at the area of a circle and we look at the fundamental equation, the area is pi r squared. The r is the radius. So if the r equals 1, then solve it as 1 times 1 is 1. But if we double the radius, like if r equals 2, then 2 times 2 is actually solves as 4. And then if you double it again, if r equals 4, then 4 times 4 is 16. So you can clearly see that the area increases quite radically as the circle gets larger. So what happens then, since gravity seeks density, if we look at the larger circle, it's magnetical. So in this case, the circle with the radius of 4 is the outer circle, and the smaller circle with a radius of 2 is gravitational, that being the inner circle. So why is this important? When we talk about refraction in physics, the change in direction of a wave passing from one medium to another caused by its change in speed, for example, as a wave travels faster in deep water than in shallow. So we see how the frequencies of the light changes. And we have to look at the sequence where the greatest change moves it from the red light to the violet light. And so we understand that when we look at light, the wavelength gets smaller, but the frequency gets higher. So therefore, as we go towards the ultraviolet, the frequency gets higher. But when we look at the rainbows, we see that the ultraviolet is on the inside, the shorter diameter, the shorter radius. And so that becomes magnetical. And then we have to add to that fact that when we have a double rainbow, the colors reverse. In other words, the red is on the inside. But when we're looking at the primary rainbow, there's something we have to consider. That if the rainbows were reflected, in other words, where the curve follows the horizon, to get the color variation to flip over, you can't reflect the rainbow. It has to be in the same curvature. It has to follow the horizon. So a reflecting rainbow does satisfy the color configuration, but does not satisfy the curvature. So what does that mean? We have a frequency anomaly. So in other words, the larger circle, the radius of 4, has a slower frequency. And the smaller circle with a radius of 2 has a faster frequency. So the smaller circle is now magnetical, and the larger circle is gravitational. So principal matter in review, these are PM ticks that are magnetical. They're traveling as energy packs all over the place. And they come together in a force field dilution, bringing together antimatter, dark matter, and matter gen. And then they interact with the Earth space as an inertia field. And so we get our physical maggrav, which is highly gravitational. So when these two forces come together, they form the X, Y, and Z axis. But the inertia manifestation is manifest through concentric circles and through spirals. So what's important to understand is that these two modes of coming together overlap. This is the duality. the rings of duality. And to add to that, we have to understand the vacuum theory failure, where the vacuum is full of principal matter and the charge is energy in motion. So the charge is always going towards the negative. The negative is the giver. And so if we understand that energy is either positive or negative, and so based on the surface to volume ratio, the higher the negative charge, and the negative gives and the positive takes. But energy can be flowing or binding. So here's that duality again. When we look at water, it too is an energy parceling unit. It consists of hydrogen and oxygen, two fundamental things. So we call it H2O because there are two hydrogens. The hydrogens are magnetical based on surface to volume ratio, and the oxygen is gravitational based on surface to volume ratio. And the maggrav, interestingly enough, is round. And it's confounding to understand how the two weaker oxygens balance off the big fat oxygen. So we have a maggrav condition here, and water is the universal solvent. And one of the characteristics that it has is this ability to shear off an electron. Shearing is something like you do with sheep. You will shear the wool off a sheep. So the one hydrogen gets sheared right off. And so that leaves a hydroxyl behind. Now the hydroxyl is negative, is no longer in balance as a water molecule, but it's a hydroxyl. And so it's looking for a place to go. And the hydrogen is positive because energy has to be something. Nothing is nothing. Something is always something. So the hydrogen was the balancer. So we have anomalies in our understanding, this singularity and duality, and we see the same thing happening when we refer to lords. Lords is in plural. Gods is in plural. We have Aphrodite and we have Zeus, and then we have the chariots of the gods. And of course, they need a parking lot to park all their chariots. So there are pluralities. So when we look at a raindrop and how it hits the surface of the water, there's an inherent plurality here. Waves go up and waves go down. And that is a basic duality. So the magnetical strength of the point of the raindrop is imparted throughout its gravitational inherent picocore, just like a PM tick. And as the rings go out, they get larger and larger. So in this case, the larger rings are magnetical and the picocore is gravitational. But it seems that we can do this without physically touching. So when we look at a tuning fork, you see that the form follows the function. There are external forces and there's an environmental interaction. And so we see the waves in duality. In other words, the frequency of the tuning fork is imparted to the frequency of the waves on the surface of the water. And so this is all based on the interaction of the hydrogen. So this gives us a key on how we travel through these various highways, the transmission highway, the carbon-12, and the transition highway of the carbon-14 and the carbon-10. But this anomaly is that the carbons there total up 24, and it's double that of the carbon-12. But when we look at the transmutation highway that involves carbon-16 and carbon-8, it too is 24. So it means that the transmission highway is missing another reference to a carbon. And this is where we have been stuck in our singularity and not understanding this duality. And speaking of not understanding, we did not understand expansion and contraction. Like lungs will expand, but lungs will contract. But then muscles will tighten and muscles will relax. The totally opposite effect. Fists can clench and fists can open, but fists cannot not open. So growth can only grow. You cannot not do something, not just simply does not work. And so we see this continual reference in the commandments where thou shalt not do this, not do that. And even if we add the additional 14 commandments, so we get a 24 pack, it still says, thou shalt not do this and not do that. But what it does say in number 1 is, I am the Lord your God. So that is another anomaly, and that's one of the reasons why we are fallen angels, because as we are falling with angular density, we fall through weakness, faults, failings, and weaknesses, and this increases our density. It increases pressure and increases gravity. So this increases our dependence on the Earth space feeding, but it is offset with the internal pressure of the Gans fields. So this angular momentum is conserved. We have a balance. And so we have to take into consideration the duality. Most of us see duality as duals, where energy manifests as a friction, fists manifest into fighting, and the division of society through racism keeps us in a state of confrontation. So the inertia density manifestation is coming together of two fields, but they tend to be a fight, a confrontation, and we do need to be polite. So gentlemen, please shake hands and come out fighting, because all of us have energy binding needs, and this self-serving is absolutely important to satisfy your dimension point of me, myself, and I. But when we do this at the expense of others who also have the same requirements, we find that we initiate a loosh harvesting activity, where we not only rob the energy inherent with someone else, but we also become victims to that through the inertia balancing. So we're seeking a vitality capacity enhancement, and regular doesn't cut it. We need an emotional and physical enhancement, and a superconductor does it. And a superconductor comes when we start to change the ratio, where we're going from double to orders of magnitude. And so you can understand that when we based on surface to volume ratios, when we go from the micro to the nano to the pico and beyond, we're talking about many multiple orders of magnitude. So this is what's been happening since Beijing conference of May the 10th, 2025, when the gold rush began. And now in 2026, not only do we have a silver rush, but we have a rare earth rush. And this all becomes apparent when we're looking at the picoatomic structure, which takes us beyond that nano monatomic state. And so that pico beacon takes that gravitationally inherent field strength and emits an array. So from the nebulous blurry point in the nano gap. And so we have to question, is the pico or the gap more important? So having laid those ground rules and having referenced Baron Tevakoli Keshe's books, like book number 1, The Universal Creation of Matter, where we're bringing the matter, antimatter, and the dark matter together, but not in singularity, but in duality, which is connected, like in book number 2, with the structure of the light. So not only do the launch points and landing points have a matter state, but so does the connector. The connecting light has a maggrav condition. And then in book number 3, The Origin of the Universe, how the singularity splits up into the duality. And now we understand this anomaly, where if we're looking at Rick Kremen and the members of the Universal Council for 439 weeks, bringing us to one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace, then we understand that all of us individually are part of the one planet. And the members of the Universal Council are part of the Earth space planet. But if we're talking about duality, then there has to be, if there are more races in the human race, there have to be more species on the Universal Councils. It only makes sense. So the plasma rule, where the higher strength feeds the weaker strength, comes to that transaction zone, which from one point of view is a conflict point, but from another is the binding zone. So this becomes an inertia density manifestation. So we have 2 points of view of one and the same thing, and they follow sequences. So there's a gravitational attraction, which is part of the feedback, and the magnetical repulsion, which is part of the feeding. And you, as the last man standing, have choices. You can turn on and turn off that feeding, or increase or decrease the strength of the fields, or enhance or diminish the positioning. But the stronger feeds the weaker. So we have captured this field because we have the capability to do a physical field capture. And from there on, we simply wanted a rock solid evidence of that reality bullseye dimension, which we call Earth space. But how we got it was from the sentimentality, where we said, what is not me, like Venus, and what is not me, like Mars. What is me is Earth. And so we use the two targets to create the one target zone. And we wonder who has that authority. When we look at where does the energy from the sun come, where does the light that we reference, that we examine the frequencies, we know specifically that the sun is up and the boots are on the ground. And so when we look at the spherical nature of the earth, we see that wherever we are, we're always having boots on the ground, not upside down, not down under, and not on the ceiling. And yet when we look at the metabolism of the cellular structure, although we have these rings, these outer rings and these inner rings, the inner rings defining this picocore in the gravitational bullseye, these are concentric rings. But when we do the metabolic casting out, it's magnetical, and it goes on in a spiral formation. So we have this overlapping action. Today's topic is capillaries, and how does it fit into this is because these are the body's microscopic blood vessels. Measuring just 5 to 10 micrometers in diameter, they connect small arteries, arterioles, to small veins, venules, forming vast networks throughout nearly every tissue. And then there's another action, a capillary action. This is the natural process where a liquid flows through a narrow space or porous material against gravity. It happens because the liquid's adhesive forces to the surface are stronger than its internal cohesive forces, allowing the fluid to climb. So in fact, there are charge-altering actions in capillary action, and is driven by 3 primary physical properties. Adhesion, which is the attraction between the liquid molecules and the surface of the solid material. Cohesion, which is the attraction of the liquid molecules to one another, pulling neighboring molecules along. And then surface tension, the tension on the liquid surface that minimizes its area and holds the liquid mass intact, just like a water molecule, the round magrav of the H2O. When we look at red blood cells, these are the erythrocytes, and are the most abundant cells in blood. They're responsible for delivering oxygen from the lungs to the body's tissues and returning carbon dioxide to be exhaled. That is the current narrative. This is produced in the bone marrow. These flexible biconcave discs, they lack a nucleus to maximize their internal space for hemoglobin. And hemoglobin, this is the most commonly cited molecular formula for adult human hemoglobin. And we have carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and iron. The globin part is a tetramer consisting of 4 folded polypeptide chains. The heme group are 4 iron-containing heme prosthetic groups. These allow the blood to reversibly bind and transport oxygen. So the oxygen transport is done with red blood cells that are packed with hemoglobin, an iron-rich protein that binds to oxygen in the lungs and releases it as it travels through the body's capillaries. The hemoglobin folds. The hemoglobin is in a star formation with the iron at the center and the oxygen at the external points in a star formation, and it folds over and the oxygen gets shared. What is left? It is the hydrogen. So now we understand folding deviation better. When we look at the amino acid star formation, we see the similarity between the solar system and the human body and how light travels from the sun and follows rules of frequency and speed. And the human body does the same, but in its star formation, we've introduced calcium, that density manifestation. And so we talk about the potentiation of hydrogen, the pH. And in alkalinity, there's an intensity. And in health, there's a balance. And in acidic, there's an outtensity. So when we do the DNA modulation, we find that the healthy DNA is aerobic. In other words, it is oxygen filled. In an unhealthy state, it is anaerobic, without oxygen. And of course, when it's dead, it is food for anaerobic bacteria, not food for you. When you become the recycled organic material. So we see the relationship between hydrogen and oxygen. So now we understand that when we look at fatty acids and we see the amount of hydrogen that is being formed, I mean, there's hydrogen all over the place. And so in this formation of the folding over creates protein. And the balancing act is water. Now we know that relationship. And so when we look at the phospholipids and how they work, they create this laminar flow where you have this physical acceleration of energy transport through the superconductivity highway. And the outer side is a magrav, and the inner one is a magrav, and they balance off. So now when we're looking at the susceptibility, it's the upness of the wave formation versus the downness. And we have only looked at the upness. The downness is just a blur fill. And we wonder, is it dangerous to go down there? But the phospholipids do, because the phospholipids themselves are a magrav. But when they have in duality, they manifest into a curvature. And so the outer ratio of the wave formation is stretched out and the inner one is squeezed together. And so this is how we have the surface to volume ratio altered. So that transaction zone that we refer to is different in singularity because it requires a soul effort, but duality requires a partnership. So the outer ring and the inner ring, and a partnership requires reciprocity. In other words, a balance of incentives. So the digestion really is the conversion of food to GANs. That's an energy supplementation. And we absorb that nutritional essence through the gravitational attraction of energy. But we have to release the waste essence. So that is done through the magnetical repulsion of energy. So that's how we achieve this cellular stability. So we see the outer ring of phospholipids and the inner ring of phospholipids and how they balance. And so we have this gravitational neutron interaction and an plasmatic interaction with its environment. So we have the concentric rings and the spiral rings overlapping. And so, as we saw last week with the screw duality, the double helix of DNA has overlapping double dual spirals. Well, the double helix of the RNA has the same thing. But the difference is we have matter state to plasma state transitioning. So this duality is what we've talked about since the 630th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, where we have these embedded inherent frequencies, where the soul and the soul of physicality have that threshold, and it requires a blur fill, because the soul of physicality always hits the bullseye, but we have a gap, a threshold to jump over. And are we ready to break through to that? We've always discussed things into duality. The cups of life consist of the cup of man, which consists of the cup of emotion and the cup of physicality. And so the emotional is magnetical and the physicality is gravitational, but the combination of the two are a maggrav. And so we resolve the plasma matter dilemma in understanding that the atomic state, the nanostate, and the GAN state are part of the gravitational physicality, but the plasma state is part of the magnetical matter state. And so each state has to be in balance, but each state has the capacity to go through a maggrav energy transfer zone. And so therefore, when we look at the cup of universe, we understand how the brain is part of that transition zone that connects us to the universe and to our physicality. And we wonder, is that a symmetry or a reflection? Well, now we've got things a lot more clear because we have the understanding of how that energy is transferred through that X factor of love. So we have a need for supplementation due to consumption. But this consumption is an acquired knowledge. It's a conditional teaching by ancient teachers. But what about the unconditional teaching by the Creator? This 20% that we are short is a new awareness for us. And it's now allowing us to examine the historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. So they say, as above, so below. Heaven is up, and heaven is the stronger field. Earth is below, and earth is the weaker field. But they say, heaven is in, and earth is out. Are we ready to enter at our own risk to understand that pioneering America may be a reflection or maybe an illusion? And when we talk about different gods, maybe we talk about the different personalities of the gods. Maybe Aphrodite, the goddess of love, is two-faced, or maybe there are other aspects that are hidden. So we understand that in the inertia density manifestation, the carbon inertia highways consist of the duality of the transmission, the duality of the transition, and the duality of the transmutation, but there's a support system in back. And the support system in back is the same thing. And it has a support system coming right back at you. So when we look at the cosmic ray equilibrium, we see the rings, the magnetical and gravitational maggrav rings. But there is a direction of flow. There is a relationship, a magnetical to gravitational, but they are in balance and they travel. And we've learned how to manifest them because we had the susceptibility and singularity demonstrated where we were producing the GANs of gold. But there was an inherent susceptibility in duality. It required a gravitational completion. In other words, an external input of a Gans field of humanity. We were the X factor. We were the Midas touch. We were the ones that turned it into gold. So if we understand the counterweight measures, can't just look at the physical state and say, well, we measure things by weight, because that's only part of the gravitational side. Even the atomic state, which we measure by mass, is still part of the gravitational side. It's the nuclear state where we measure Teslas, and the plasma state where we measure time, and that is part of the magnetical side. So when we look at the plasmas, there are no two plasmas the same. There are no two bagels the same. So there's a plasmic manifestation when they come together and they create that dimension array point, the bringing together of the magnetical and gravitational magravs into that transitional zone, that physical manifestation where we have this gravitational certainty. Oxygen is that non-visible X factor gas, and it shows how we have this plasmatic decay to GANs. And the GANs can decay from gas to liquid to solid. And we have this physical anchorage in our gravitationally inherent oxygen. And although it's non-visible, it will give us a rainbow color of its emission spectrum. And we will see that color as a fingerprint. So we have inherent attributes that give us this gravitational confirmation, that gravitational center point, that gravitational picocore. This gives us gravitational certainty. So we have a mutually assured construction. But then, did we forget about the magnetical certainty when we achieved 129 Tesla in the physical matter state? The 129 Tesla is the ability to achieve an extreme magnetical condition under a gravitational condition. So here we are traveling in uncharted territory, and we're covering the full range from decay to radiation. The AI is that ancestral intelligence where we are the technology, we are the inertia product, and we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. So this light that we keep talking about is reflecting our timelessness. We talk about the men, the myths, the legends. Are we legends in our own mind, or are we legends in the Sumerian texts? So we have this plasma science, this physical science, or this pseudoscience. What? What about things like Agartha, as written in The Gods with Amnesia? This concept of an immense legendary kingdom said to be on the earth's inner surface, sometimes involving a king of the world or multiple kings who are said to rule and secretly influence events on the surface world. This is a modern esoteric concept from the 19th and 20th centuries, popularized through Western occultism, science fiction, and, yeah, those hollow earth myths. That's what they are. So in the plasma science, we understand energy portability. It's energy modulation through state transition, where we can elevate. That's the physical matter state, lower energy, to the energy state, higher energy. And inertia, the higher energy state, to the physical matter state, the lower energy. So elevation involves expansion, and physical manifestation involves contraction. So as we try to achieve that greater oneness, that singularity where we have a higher surface to volume ratio, so we can suddenly transcend the limitations of nuclear science. This is why for 651 weeks, the Knowledge Seekers Workshops have been bringing together this educational series, this Pico Core of Truth. And so the Keshe Foundation is working on the space plasma science and technology and research and building the nation networks, facilitating a scientific rescue, opening the blinds and hitting the bullseye to modulate that X factor, one nation network at a time. And that time is now, where we have to overcome the space racism, the science fact versus the science fiction, the universal councils, where we have a so-called competition between the earthbound and the spacebound, and space in itself, where we have world rulers versus world leaders. Boils down to warmongers versus peacemongers. Hard to understand that the hand that kills can be the hand that caresses. So we have a compassion, racism burden, and we have a capacities, racism burden. These burdens need to be eliminated because we can do this through our mission to bring peace on earth and joy in humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is used to this lack of knowledge. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science, welcoming all the beautiful plasma travels of the carbon nations, learning about the new frequencies of the new organic plasma science. That World Peace Treaty is something you need to sign. You need to choose it unconditionally and mean it sincerely, because the matter tech dominates our seed core manifestation. The man-made margin between the war dome and the peace dome needs to be bridged. Is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history, or is it time to learn the history of self in a universal context? The physical Magrav state has a limited marginal strength capacities. It's the capillaries that squeeze and shear the transition state plasma transfer fields of the physical matter state inertia conditions. This is done regularly, continually, thousands of times per second while you've been sitting listening to this class, and understanding that the plasma science needs to be enhanced daily by the peace dome in a practical exchange for peace on earth. And so welcome to the new golden outer space age, and thank you for participating in this class. That is the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. I think you touched on some important points. One of them that I noticed was this energy flowing and how we blocked it. Does anyone want to raise any questions or points about what we just heard from Alex? Thank you again, Alex. Please continue. Even though you're physically not here, we know you're here in the energy dimension and so on. And thank you for providing another aspect of the teaching as you see it. And many points, of course, were brought up here. Anyone have any comments or questions? Alex may listen to these and answer you next week, perhaps. Okay, there's no question. So what I thought we would do today, since I mentioned the energy flowing, and maybe we've been trying to do some things like absorbing that extra 20% or even 10%, but we haven't had a lot of success with it. And since Alex mentioned flowing of energy and Mr. Keshe mentioned the plastics, in the clothing, limiting our ability to have a beautiful flow of energy. Again, when we wrap ourselves in a polyester blanket, these are some of the effects. It can't limit all of the transmission and interactions of energies, but it has some sort of aspect to it that doesn't allow the full flow. So since Alex mentioned flowing of energy, and unblocking this flow, one of the ways we can do that is through the clothing. So I think we're going to listen to the 8 minutes, about 8 minutes, of what Mr. Keshe said about your clothing and his wardrobe and the line of clothing that'll be developed. I mean, I started to go through some of my clothing, and it almost appears that I'd have to wear just underwear and a t-shirt because that's some of the only things that are 100% pure cotton. Although I did find some shirts that are cotton and so on. I'm investigating the silk and the wool as well. But perhaps why we're not achieving some of these things is because we're actually unknowingly blocking energy flow and energy transfer. So let's hear what Mr. Keshe said about coming out with a new line of clothing and examining your own wardrobe or even the wardrobe of your child. Perhaps even changing the emotions. Apparently, these blockings or this insulation is causing an emotional shortage, which causes other conditions. As he said, one of the reasons of many of your conditions of unwellness is this plastic clothing that we're buying, not allowing the full flow of fields. So I thought if there's no questions with this, we listen to the last 8 minutes, then we'll play the final disclaimer and the session will come to an end. But it's something that you can do for yourself. Examine your sheets, your outer clothing, and so on. Although some of these materials are a bit more expensive, they're obviously lead to a more balanced and a longer and a more balanced structure, I think. And maybe this will help us to achieve some of these things we're trying to do of absorbing energies or more energies just by changing the clothing or examining what you've actually been wearing, colors notwithstanding. So I thought we would go and bring it to this point. I think this was part of Dean's interaction with Mr. Keshe, but something about this clothing and how it has a strong effect on our nature, so to speak. Let's see if we could do this. I'm at 2 minutes and 2:39:44. I'm not sure. It does sort of start here. Maybe I'll just back it up a hair more. And we'll listen to these 8 minutes and then we'll play the final disclaimer and we'll end the session. Anyone have any questions, or is anyone looking in their clothes basket to see what actually they've been sort of unknowingly doing to themselves, if you think it has some sort of bigger interaction with your structure? I think it actually does. That's why it was opened up in a way, even though we've heard this before. And obviously plastics have been talked about internally and so on. Mr. Keshe went a bit more into these colors and this sort of sportswear and other things. So let's take this 8 minutes. Any comments anyone would like to make? Let's take this last 8 minutes. Again, you can look at your wardrobe or wardrobes of your family and then buy appropriate sort of scarves. Instead of a polyester scarf, you may buy a silk scarf. They kind of feel the same. Some of these materials in the polyester are quite feeling like silk, but I think the petroleum base out of this is where they come from, has caused a deleterious effect in our structure, and we weren't aware of it. So let's open this up a bit. Thank you, Alex. Please continue these presentations until you're back with us fully. And maybe, as I say, you'll get the ONN and hook up from whatever position you're at. So let's see if we can just follow this for 8 minutes and then we'll end the session.
You have the hurricanes.
Okay, a little bit more backup. All right, let's start at 39.
Through your skin, it becomes that emotion that we all interact to. It becomes a memory that is very, very powerful, and it links to you. So another question, Mr. Keshe, would be what you were speaking about earlier with the skin and these irritations and things. What would happen with the skin of the planet Earth when there's certain interactions happening that would cause an irritation?
You have the earthquakes.
Yeah.
You have the volcano.
Mm-hmm.
You have the hurricanes. And the rest of it.
Are they linked locally, or do they manifest because
it
of
is
the
part of the structure of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of an energy trap, part of energy manifestation.
And so, if we, Mr. Keshe, so if we cause this ourselves within our own structure, and we're linked to everything from from micro to macro, from an atom to a universe, then it must be the same all the way through.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
There is no difference in the world of creation. It's just man makes it for him to be more, looking much better.
So when we wrap the world in plastic, like in, say, an ambulance, people wear these jackets, bright colored jackets, what would that do?
A lot of things. We have, actually, not very far from where I am now, we have knowledge seekers who have gone critical up to the point of literally they cannot eat anything. They cannot sleep. A small irritation creates a more or less life condition. By just wearing nothing else, these new sports clothing. We are analyzing it. This material was in my hand a couple of days ago. We are researching into this very deeply, as I said in the teaching of today. These synthetic colors, plastics, being carbon connected, is creating mayhem in the life of our children. Our young generation are moody. You look at the people who go with these fancy sport clothes and run. These fancy clothes, sports clothes, plastic. Don't give your children. You buy a sports gear for your children, your grandchildren, buy cotton. Don't compromise. You play with their life in the future. They say if you use a toothbrush, the plastic toothbrush, at every time you brush is about 10,000 or something huge number of microplastics you give to your child. Change your toothbrushes to a natural toothbrush. And these microplastic color is horrendous. We see a lot of people, you see it on the back of the bottles. It says this number for coloring, which is all carbon based. If a drink you take, you give it to a child and you see it becoming hyperactive, you become allergic to it, how come you restrict your brain only to the water, to the drink? What about the clothes which carries the same? We have been put in such a cycle of thinking that we don't think anymore. If you see I'm allergic to this because my body can't take it, and look at the bottle, how many C's, what other names are added to, and the factory producing these sports gear, this clothing, and not necessarily sports gear, but the sports gear is one of the most part of, even we see the young people dying on the sports ground. The static energy created and the color combination created, the heart cannot take, it's just sap into it. They say I had a heart attack. See what child was wearing at the time. What has been clothing with? You see the new cancers. See, why does it come? Our clothing, present clothing, is one of the biggest sources of all our diseases. 80% of our new generation problems, emotion, eating, performance, all connected to the clothes they wear, synthetic, and as you put color, so on, so on, so on the bottle, put those on the clothing, and then you see who wears and see who allergic to what, because there's one big factor, huge factor, which nobody considers, is that when you wear this clothing, you sweat. Sweat is the salt and the water. In a way, what you have between the outer layer, middle layer, and the inner layer, now you reverse it the other way around. It's your skin, your sweat, and the outer layer, which is chemically dangerous.
Forcing all the toxins back into the skin instead of...
Exactly.
I've wondered about the sports bras, the polyester and other synthetic sports bras that women have now, and whether that's related to the continuing increase in breast cancer.
Yes. Data is coming up very rapidly. The manufacturers soon will be forced to put what color code they use, and you see if you're allergic on it, you don't touch it. These fancy colors you see in the sportswear is a recipe for a lot of disaster for our generation to come. A lot of women can't give birth. You see a lot of people who do a lot of these runnings and wear these fancy clothing have a problem giving birth because the magnetic field, the potential field, the strength of the womb has changed. You got to understand, in City of London, majority of the men have become infertile because so much contraceptive has been used by women, and then it passed on through the water, and then it gets recycled and back for everybody to drink, and it touches the man's productivity. How can that water, which is gone, can affect, but the skin you wear on you does not affect you? Try to convert into natural materials. Now you have a lot of companies, they use the bark of the woods, they use different combination of natural materials and gives you a feeling. It's different. If I wear a synthetic clothing, I feel like trapped. Somehow the energy is trapped in. They use natural materials, and you see people who lived a long time. Look at the people who lived 200, 300, 400 years. They've always been in the world, the realm of natural clothing. But we don't understand it, and the commercial forces make it sometimes impossible. We have it in China. In China, IKEA sells silk quilts. In the West, we don't see it yet. And when you sleep in the silk quilt, you sleep totally different. You know, winter quilt in China, you can buy that the content is 100% silk. It's totally weightless and it's so comfortable, and you sleep because you sleep in the nature of different things. Like when you choose a bed, don't choose a bed with a spring because the metals distort the cycle of a sleep. In China, we have, in the Europe, I've checked all the IKEAs, it's not here. You look at the silk bedding, which is now, it's very common in IKEA in China. It's amazing. It more emphasizes in what I said. For me to sleep without that kind of thing nowadays is impossible. I prefer not to, because the energy balance is different. And it's normal. It's not something you pay exorbitant prices. It's a normal price, but the big companies have to start looking at. You see a lot of cotton companies coming up. A lot of companies with natural fibers are popping up all over the world. It's not unique anymore. And if you can be in that point, especially your youngsters, explain to them what it is. Give them a glass of orange juice, make them hyperactive, says you carry this on your skin. They say they don't know why athletes suddenly die on the football grounds. Check what they're wearing, what they've been wearing with.
Mr. Keshe, can I jump in and quickly say something there? Because there's something important, I think. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But the running on the pitches, I noticed when I was a lot younger, they brought in these plastic pitches, and I was always I loved football, and I played football for many years. And I remember running around on open grass fields and things, and then they brought in these plastic pitches, and I trained on one, and then all of a sudden I broke down, and like literally my legs, I couldn't move.
Yeah,
And
you create a
it's the
static
connection.
energy.
Yeah, I just could not move. So the moment they brought them in, there was a big imbalance in the body, and it totally changed the whole structure, the link. It was disconnected.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now you understand. You feel it, because I know exactly, because I used to play football in England on this field. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And remember the vinyl hoses for water hoses that we used to drink out of, and they used to say you should run the water for a while before you drink out of it, because it's sitting in the sun with the vinyl full of plastics. Actually,
you could taste it. You could smell it.
Literally taste it.
You could taste it. I know, but the young generation, I mean, it's something which has to be understood by the commercial pressures. You make even synthetic, don't add these colors to it. Plain colors, natural colors, without additives. You shop without additives. We pay for bio food. Look at the bio clothing. It makes a lot of difference. Even in your emotion, even in your sleep pattern, even in your way of thinking. Especially women with bras and underwear and all these fancy negligees, which says cancer, 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 die, 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 die.
Mr. Keshe, what do people do about shoes? Do we go for leather, cotton, or there's a lot of synthetic materials in shoes and sneakers, and combined with synthetic socks is a kind of a bad combo.
I can't touch any of these, especially socks in what you call synthetic. But shoes, again, goes depending on your, what you call, needs of. I usually try to wear for decades. I always buy leather shoes. But due to some reasons, I have to wear synthetic shoes. I'm very careful, and I feel it when I do, but it's all medical reasons than anything else, because he has stopped a lot of problems for me. And in the leather world, they don't make these things. It's not there yet. But try to be as natural. It's not becoming, it's just understanding what it does to us. There's a reaction to every action, and our body is not yet evolved. But most probably our next generations will evolve to accept the energy, synthetic energy, or what you call the static energy of the synthetic materials. But at the moment we don't. You put your children in a cotton clothing, and you put your children in silk clothing, you put your children in natural fibers, and watch their behavior and give them synthetic clothing with all the decorations on it. And then you understand exactly it's as bad as the drinks you give them when they become hyperactive.
Mr. Keshe, sorry, jump in again. So could you change this condition? So there's two ways to manufacturing and all the, the chemicals and all these mass-produced things. To change that individually on each item is a huge scale thing that's going to cost trillions of dollars and pounds, euros, whatever you want to call it.
Very soon, Keshe Foundation will introduce a new type of clothing. It's in the patent. But maybe in a year, 2 years' time, we will introduce this product into the market now that the research center is going. You do not need to wear clothes to be clothes, if you see what I mean. We wear clothes because of the cold, the heat. We wear clothes because of our principles. Genitals cannot be seen. But there is a solution which is used in the universe by many races. It's not something new. That you've been to China and you see suddenly the buildings all become light. You don't see the building, you just see what the light stands under it. And the whole cities, well, at night till about 10 or 12 o'clock, some cities in China are lit like this. This is how the next generation of clothing will be. You can change instantaneously the color of your clothes every second you like. But the technology for it has to be that it fits into the energy balance of the body of the man. Technology is there, it's been tested, and now that we have the research center, clothing is one of the sports, entertainment, and clothing is one of the things which will come out of the Keshe Foundation in China very soon, next 2 to 3 years, maybe even sooner. And this will change. You do the same. We will introduce in the coming time that nowadays you build a building with all the construction material. If you go into the pattern, you don't need to make a construction material. You produce a field, a house that matches your soul, matches your body. The floors are still there, everything is there. Nobody can see through the walls, nobody can see off the street. And it just creates a dynamic energy. You have a vertical, any shape of dynamic you like. This is doable, and we'll introduce it. Clothing is one of those. A new game will be introduced, new toys which affects the children emotion. Part of this has been already produced. We are monitoring, we are observing the behavior. You play with the certain products which we produce, and we are testing it now. How children change the minute they touch it. They receive the energy. They become less aggressive. They eat, switch to mainly fruits. We are monitoring this. The fruit consumption, vegetable consumption goes so high. No taste as such, with except peaks into meat. And we are controlling, we're monitoring this. But it has to be understood before it's put into the market.
Okay, let's leave it right there. Just wanted to emphasize the importance of the clothes. Even we look at just the colors and if they match and so on, but there is much more to clothing than meets the eye. As I was joking, do the clothes make the man? We've always heard that in advertising, but maybe sometimes clothes could break the man. Just a little joke there, or break his connection to universal energies. And that seems to be, in a way, what's happening, not only with the adults, but the children as well. Any thoughts or questions? If not, I'm going to play the final disclaimer and the session will come to an end. Sorry about the video from Alex. It's just not sized and I don't know how to size it properly for my screen. No problem. I think we've got the gist of it. Thank you again, Alex, and thank each and every one of you for joining us today. Again, carrying a small corner of a very large carpet. Any other thoughts or questions? Otherwise, I'll play the final disclaimer and the session will come to an end. All right, thank you all again. Have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you in one of the upcoming sessions this week. And again, remember that the Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Thursday is rescheduled to the 6 p.m. Central European Summertime. All right, we'll play the final disclaimer and the session will. Thank you all again.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.